Okay, I will call to order a meeting of the Hartford Select Board at 6 o'clock on October 28th, 2025. First order of business is the Pledge of Allegiance.
Did you want to say a couple of things about the health board?
Yes,
Sorry.
I will do that. Originally scheduled for 5:30 today was the health board. And there was a resolution that allowed the health officer to cancel the health board meeting. So thank you for all those who may have come a little bit early and were waiting for that issue, but that was canceled. Okay, so now we'll have the Pledge of Allegiance. And is there anyone in the room who would like to lead the Pledge of Allegiance?
To the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you.
For the minutes, can we have the name of the person who recited the pledge?
Patty Holmes.
Patty Holmes, thank you very much.
Okay, so there is no local liquor control board business. So we will move on then to the local cannabis control board. We're going to close as the select board and open as the local cannabis control board. And first order of business here is to consider the renewal of the local cannabis license for the Tea House LLC at 50 Woodstock Road, White River Junction, Vermont. How are you, Miriam?
I'm good, how are you?
Well, thank you.
Good.
Go ahead, Miriam.
So I'm here for my renewal. This will be our third year in operation. Technically fourth, we started a little early at the end of the first year that Vermont first had dispensaries. And so I'm here to renew.
Anybody have any questions for Miriam? Ashley, is that it?
Yes.
Okay, just want to make sure you weren't just saying.
Thank you. Yeah, just generally wondering, like, how is business? Like, is it going well? Are you having any issues that maybe the board could support you through? Just, yeah.
No, I think things are going really well. I think the state, cannabis in Vermont is still very much in its infancy in terms of recreation. So the CCB, which is kind of who we report to aside from the local cannabis control board, I think is still trying to kind of navigate things. But I think things are going really well.
Cool. Right. Okay, I'll take a motion then.
Madam Chair,
Yes, Mike?
I move that the board renew the local cannabis license for the Tea House LLC at 50 Woodstock Road.
Okay, is there a second? Okay, Miranda, second. All those in favor say aye.
Hi.
Okay, passes. Miriam,
Thank
thank you
you.
for coming in.
Thanks for coming in.
Thanks.
All right, I will close as the local cannabis control board and reopen as the Hartford Select Board. And is there anybody who wants to make any changes to the order of the agenda on the select board?
So
Tim?
as we discussed, I don't know whether when we get down, and maybe this is kind of in the area 5, is there any presenters, if you will, within that group that would benefit by changing the order? Do you know what I mean by that?
Mm-hmm.
I mean, is there anyone, what do we have? We have Assessor, Town Clerk, Human Resources. Like, so who's here tonight for that?
All three, I think, will be here. I did talk with both Lori and Jeremy, who will be Zooming in tonight for their convenience. Lori because of an injury and Jeremy because of the lateness of the hour.
Yeah, so what I was suggesting is that we were kind of discussing the fact that we do have employees that live far away. So if we want to tweak that order, I mean, I don't know if that benefits us, but
Well,
if they're, in other words, if you feel like Assessor, Town Clerk, Human Resources, is there anyone that would benefit by going first and saving time to be able to go home? But just,
I
I may
think
be.
if that's the case, it would only be because if they're zooming in, that
Correct, that
defeats the
doesn't make
purpose.
moot point, so.
We will and have tried to be mindful of those
Okay.
kinds of things.
Thank you.
Thank you for raising it up, though.
Okay, then we will move on to public comment. Remember that public comment is an opportunity for the public to comment. It's not the place for dialogue. If you have specific questions to direct it, that is the purview of the town manager. Please email him. And if you are here to make a comment on any of the agenda items that are in number 5, please wait until that time to speak with that, to those agenda items. Otherwise, we will take public comment at this point in time. You have 3 minutes.
Do I need to? Hi, I'm Michelle, resident of White River Junction, Vermont, and I emailed everybody what I'm going to say tonight. So if I don't make it in 3 minutes, you can follow up by my email. So I am a member of the Community Coalition, and so some of what I'm going to say is in regards to this and my concerns. So the document that I shared with you guys outlines critical questions and potential solutions regarding the new low barrier shelter proposed by the Haven in Hartford. The community, through its outreach committee, requires clear answers and proactive planning to ensure public safety, responsible resource allocation, and effective oversight. Currently, some members of the coalition have concerns about the effectiveness of the current coalition due to the revelation that the former outreach commander was sexually harassing staff and community members. So my key questions: safety and security. Security provision. Who will be responsible for security at the Haven's low barrier shelter? Will the Haven hire its own dedicated security staff, or will it rely solely on the Hartford Police Department? Now, we've seen in Lebanon, it's problematic. So you guys can probably request the data for the number of police calls for a similar shelter. Operating hours. What are the operational hours of the shelter? Will it be 24/7 facility, or will it operate only during specific times? Drug and alcohol policy. Given that it is a low barrier shelter, what is the policy regarding drug and alcohol use on the premises? Are they permitted inside the facility? What are the policies and procedures regarding drug and alcohol use in current shelter facilities? This would also include Twin Pine facilities. And that's something I, as a member of the coalition, have asked the Haven staff, what is their safety plan? What are their policies and procedures? And I've yet to get that answer. Regulatory compliance and oversight. Past permit issues. Concerns exist regarding the Haven's past operation of an emergency shelter without proper permits or the town's knowledge. What assurances can be provided that all necessary permits and town regulations will be adhered to for this new low barrier shelter? Financial oversight and reporting. Lebanon is contributing financially to this shelter. That is part of their plan. It's on their website. But funds are directed to the Haven, not to Hartford, which will incur increased operational costs and infrastructure costs, such as police and emergency services. So I'm done. All right. Anyway, you guys can read the rest of this.
Absolutely. Thank you very much.
Mary, could I ask a question?
Yes.
My question, I think maybe is for John, but maybe also for yourself. Well, I'll say that, Michelle, this is a great and really helpful document. And I think that a lot of these are really great questions to be asking now. So I'm wondering, is this something, John, that you think would be tackled by the committee and that HPD would get some answers to these questions, or?
Well, I'm happy to take my lead from the coalition. I serve on it and meet with it every month. I wonder how Michelle or others feel about the possibility of me sharing these concerns directly with the Haven. Would that be permissible?
Can I reply? I've already shared these concerns since the first time we met.
With the Haven?
With the Haven,
Okay.
with the group,
Okay.
with the people in charge, with Amy.
But so you are okay with sharing this with Haven staff for, I mean, I'd
Yeah,
like
and
to
I
ask
have,
as
and
a
I've
board
talked to
member.
them about it, so, but, hopefully maybe with other voices involved, we'll get answers. Thanks.
Thank you.
Yeah, John, if you're comfortable,
Yeah.
I'm curious
By all
about,
means, the current director has come to at least, I think, one of the coalition meetings and one of the subcommittee meetings, one or two maybe. And maybe he'd or have staff come to address us about plans for the low barrier shelter before it opens.
yeah, that would be helpful.
Understanding that the current administrator
Is stepping down
is stepping down. and
next
there'll be a
month,
new
I think.
person as of, I think, although there will be a transition with both of them, I believe, starts November 1st.
Okay. Okay, thank you.
Hi, my name's Barb Middleton, and it's going to kind of be repetitive what I have to say here. But I have lived in this town, owned property in this town since I was 3 years old. And I graduated Hartford High School. My kids graduated from Hartford High School, and I'm invested in this town. I have also been a member of the coalition for the last 6 months, going to meetings twice a month. I was on the subgroup of the accountability group, which we were trying to solve problems with what's going on in the town. And we just were spinning our wheels, it seems like, every meeting. And it seems like we're going to be spinning more because we've been trying to get this data from the Haven, from Twin Pines. Amy, who was the facilitator of this meeting, I'm not even reading my notes, I should. But Amy and Dan started the meetings, and we, from the get-go, were asking for data, from where the emergency departments go. Every time there's a call, there's 3 different vehicles that go out on call. And she, for some reason, she's the criminal data specialist at the HPD. She couldn't give us that information. So I don't know who could give us that information, but it would be very important because we can't find answers without data. And that also goes along with the health department and the needles found all over town. We had Brett at the meetings. He was supposed to get us a list along with Ella, I think was her name, from the state of Vermont Health Department on how many needles were being picked up, what they were doing with them. We didn't get any answers there either. So the transparency in town, that was the whole reason I joined the group, was that I was hoping to be some help with these neighborhood watches. We were trying to work with the police, and we were not really getting anywhere except covering up things going in town. Since I've been on this coalition, I've found out some things that are pretty eye-opening, and it really upsets me. We need to do an overhaul in this town. And it's up to you guys, because I've already been in a meeting with John. I've been to this coalition group for 6 months. And the last person I could think to come to is the select board, because you guys make the rules. And I'm begging you, before this low barrier shelter opens, that you have a plan in place. Because Dan, who is also on this coalition, who's a police officer in town, told me he was afraid of what's going to happen. He's a policeman. He's afraid. What are we supposed to feel? I didn't set my timer, so I don't know how long I've been going on here.
We're doing that.
Okay, good. I have 2 seconds. So anyways, I appreciate your listening. I love this town. I want to see it flourish to what it used to be. We need your help. Thank you.
May I say one thing quickly?
Yes.
I know this is not a dialogue, but I did want to let folks know that at the last coalition meeting last Thursday, Will Fernari, who is the new outreach lieutenant, made it pretty clear to me, maybe you saw the same thing, Eric, that they were putting together a package of data to share with coalition members about responses to particular addresses. So I do think that's coming soon.
He, in fact, if I may, he presented some of that data on Thursday night. So
They were tweaking it to make it
right,
accurate as possible.
I think more work needs to be done to create the story, because some of it was not fully contextualized. But it's in process. And so I think there's a start. So I'll leave it there.
Thank you. Heidi, go ahead.
Hi. I can also email you what I wrote. I did print it off if anyone wants a hard copy. I wasn't sure what to do. So good evening. Thank you for allowing me to speak. My name is Heidi Duto, White River Junction, Vermont. Harassment and sexual harassment today is not acceptable, yet in the town of Hartford, it is allowed to happen. Not only have we recently heard about this in the Valley News, but I and other residents have either reported it to HPD or John Haverstock, yet nothing has been done about it. Yes, this is in reference to Carl Ebenhausen, who was just allowed to retire with full benefits from our town. Going back to 2020, I started receiving nightly telephone calls from the drunk Carl, who time and time again felt the need to tell me that he loved me, even though his girlfriend was sleeping in the bed in the next room in her house. I would tell him time and again to get off the phone and go tell her, but he insisted that he knew who he was speaking to. I would hang up the phone on him and he would stop for a week or two, but start up again and do the same thing again. I did not feel comfortable going to the past town manager with my complaints and concerns. I did go to John in the spring of 2024. He listened to me, then stated that Carl was off duty and could drink on his own time. He then stated he would speak with Chief Sheldon about my concerns. I should have known nothing would happen because Chief Sheldon had harassed me and other females when we complained about the safety in regards to problems in and around Hartford Avenue and the Haven. Plus, Chief Sheldon and Carl were close friends in and out of work. I again went to John requesting that Carl not call me after he continued to call me drunk in regards to our calls about the Reynolds property on Christian Street and the dilapidated circumstances surrounding that property, the squatters, and the drug dealing. I even brought it to John's attention that I and other residents knew that Carl was going into work hungover and was a liability to the town since he was driving town vehicles, yet nothing was ever done. Moving on to this year, I was invited by Carl to attend the Hartstadt meeting in February. In March, I requested a schedule to be posted so those who chose to attend would know ahead of time and could plan to attend. John replied all to an email, me included. Connie, Carl, and Amy, I do not know if you encourage the public to attend these sessions. Heidi could be a disruptive presence at Hartstadt, in my view. Again, if you were to let her know of the upcoming community coalition process, that may satisfy her. My 2 cents, John Haverstock. May I continue or not?
No, I think we're gonna stop there, Heidi.
May I
We've got the
please
bit.
hand this in to you all?
Sure.
Yes. Very, very, very important to me. And I would say that if any of you would like to reach out to me, please do so. I would like to handle this at a town level, but I'm more than willing, I'm sorry that I'm shaking, but I'm more than willing to take this out of town at this level, because I think it is very important. Can you take it past the family?
Sure.
Madam Chair,
I really appreciate your vulnerability in coming and making these comments to me.
I'd be happy to yield my time in select board comment and give Heidi my 3 minutes to finish. If you'll allow it.
There's 2 pages.
I think, oh,
Did you get 2 pages?
I only got one.
She needs the second one, I'm sorry.
I think. Thank you. I think we have a lot of people here tonight and other people need to talk.
That's fine.
All right, so thank you, Heidi.
Thank you for allowing me to speak.
You're welcome.
Hi, I'm Sonia O'Banion Wilder. I also belong to the Coalition Safety Group and the Accountability Group. I've been going since May. I've seen no traction. I respect that John wants to take the lead on this, but he's been at all the meetings, so I don't believe that him going into the meeting still and asking for more information that none of us are getting, and he's currently in the meetings, he's not gonna get them either. So I don't think that's gonna be helpful. So I think low barrier shelter, there's no safety plan in place, and that's your job. You and the zoning board to make sure that happens. Our police department is gonna be called there multiple times. I asked the police department, Connie and Dan at the time, are you looking at other towns that have low barrier shelters? Are you putting a plan in place? And they said, no, we haven't done that yet. This is being built and it's gonna be open next year, and they're doing nothing proactively to put a plan in place. I too was a victim of Carl's inappropriate activity, just so you are aware. And the data that you talked about that they presented on Thursday night, which none of us went to the meeting because we had a private meeting to get ready for this meeting. That data that you were given is the data that's gonna go on the website. That's not the exact data that we're asking for. We're asking for specific calls. For example, I wanna know how many calls going to the Haven between January and March. Bingo. Data criminal analyst says she couldn't provide that information. I mean, I'm no guru, but I know there's an Excel spreadsheet that will come up with something like that. And we were told at a meeting that to get that record, that we could put in a request for that record for $1,000. We are on a board for the town to try and make problems better. And we have to pay? That seems ludicrous to me. And then ordinances. I was brought on the accountability group. We discussed updating ordinances. I then had a conversation with John, and John suggested that the police department make the changes, or we submit our changes to the police department review, and then it would go before the select board. I served on the select board. That's your job. We as people just serving on little groups in town should not be doing your job. You're elected to this position. You need to, I mean, these ordinances haven't been updated in policy since 2004. You ought to be ashamed of yourselves. Like ordinances, for example, I'm gonna, just as an example, people need to littering. So you're gonna get all these encampments and they're trying to get them to clean up their mess. They don't have money to pay a fine. They don't have licenses for us to take. They're not going to do anything about making this ordinance. What my suggestion was, have them then go to diversion. Diversion then gives them community service to start cleaning up our town. That's holding accountability. And so finally, I want to let you know, I know, I had, my tenant was assaulted in Wilder on Saturday by a random man in town. My tenant is a Dartmouth student, and he's here from Sri Lanka for the first time to the United States. He's been here a month. He was walking from Data Man on Hartford Avenue over to my house on Pasumsic. Some man just walked up to him, punched him in the head. This was the second assault that man did that very day. And it took police officers more time to get to my tenant than it did for me to come home from the plaza when I got the call. There's got to be something done about safety in this town. We are getting transients from this guy's not from this area, so I can say this. We're getting transients from everywhere that have mental health issues. That is your job. So please, I know you're coming into budget season and I know it's going to get really busy, and I don't envy your job at all, but the safety of this town and the safety of people in it, my tenant's petrified to go out and walking. Before the police department, you're their boss. It's your job to make this town safe.
Thank you. I do understand that digitization of the ordinances has been ongoing and it's soon to be, do you know when it's being rolled out?
Last I heard was Thursday that it was coming in the next few days.
I don't understand.
That's just putting the ordinances on the website that you can
That's not
search.
reviewing them. I was on a Hikori, 2019. That was a suggestion, 2019, to find all the ordinances, policies, and procedures, go through them, put them on the website, and then review them. 2020, I've been asking the select board since 2020. It's 2025. Right? It helps, it helps everyone. It should, yeah. And there's scholarships or funds from the Vermont League of Cities and Towns to help, to pay for it. Thank you.
Thank you.
And I would just like to add to that. That
So
when I
you-
was on the,
we
when I was on
just-
the board,
We just had
That-
you.
Yep.
And you went.
and you had me again, what I would like to
No,
suggest
You need to sit
is
down.
that you
I want to give
put
everybody
groups
else a
together
chance. I'm sorry,
to
Sonia.
update the ordinances.
Sonia, I'm
That's your
sorry,
job.
but this is our rules. Kathy?
Hit it. Hi, I'm Kathy Melisick, from Wilder, Vermont. I did not know what other people were mentioning, so I may sound like a bit of an outlier here. I was, and I'm looking at my notes, I was belatedly, as usual, going to send a much belated thank you to you and John and HPD for all they've had to handle recently this year. It's not often you look and hear about a murder and people, running loose in the town and, it's just been kind of a rough year. And I'm just a resident. I'm not one of the people directly dealing with those. And I read the recent article in the Valley News about the HPD issues and obviously have no opinion on or knowledge of that. But it made me think that I must have missed their feature article on our first female police chief ever. In Wilder, we've had some significant crime recently. Sonia mentioned the assaults, I believe, a few days ago. We had criminal vandalism over the summer along Hartford Ave with many thousands of dollars in damage to multiple homes and properties. We had a hugely drunk person racing up and down Hartford Ave at nighttime in the dark a couple weeks ago. And, I was one of 4 members of the public who attended the 2 Rivers, 4 members of the public who attended the 2 Rivers planning meeting held here over the summer, at which they highlighted the state's interest in developing areas and development pressure in areas that were proactive enough years ago to have built water and sewer infrastructure for health, environmental, commercial, and homeowner growth. And remembering that we currently do not have impact fees for developers, we don't have it. People like to say, well, they were suspended, but as far as I know, we don't have them. That's an issue of semantics. I asked the 2 Rivers representatives what the state will be doing to help, in this case, Hartford, pay for the increased need for police, fire, health, emergency dispatch, DPW, and other town staff and equipment resources, given the increased development that they are directing to our neighborhoods. And I would address that also to neighboring communities that are refusing to build any workforce or affordable housing or any kind of housing and using their lack of infrastructure as a reason for it. They weren't able to give an answer. We had a good talk about it. It was a very good meeting. And I would encourage people to look at their website because you can actually go on there and put points of issues and comments that you have about areas in Hartford on their map. But Lori Hirschfeld seemed to agree with the question too. Everything's coming here and no one else seems to be paying for the resources that are increased, that are with the increased need for resources that we're experiencing here. And 2 things, I got to say, I am pleased with the leadership here right now after 25 and a half years. I know, not a native, Rutland town, sorry, not sorry. But we have some really, really good people working in the town now. And it's nice to feel like we're not going to immediately, a few months later, have some horrible blow up again, like we've had in recent years. Dang, okay, I had another compliment, but I'll save it.
Or you can write an email to the board.
Yeah.
Thank you, Kathy.
Hi, Jennifer Lamore. I'm a White River resident.
Couldn't hear your last name.
Lamore. And I just wanted to add to some of the comments that have been made about accountability and some of the unsavory characters that are living in our town. We live on a dead-end road, but it's accessible via foot through the trail yard, the railroad tracks. We have had many encampments on the end of our very quiet road, which have brought in theft and just a complete unease for a home that I have lived in for 20 plus years, where I have chose to raise my now 7-year-old daughter, who I don't let her out of my sight when we are outside now. And even just driving up and down the road, we're being swore at by people because they've chosen not to push the signal to walk. They walk across the road where they feel like it. In the last month and a half, I've had 3 instances where I've almost hit a cyclist because they have come straight down Courier Street at me on a bicycle, which is a 1-lane road. And one instance, I said one way and I was swore at with my daughter in the car. I'm raising a small human being that I'm having to politely use words about people who have a drug issue. This is just not something that I should have to teach my 7-year-old. That when I'm driving her to school in the morning, these are the type of people that are staggering up and down our sidewalks, and they don't care. They look at our law enforcement and they all but laugh in their faces, knowing there's not anything that they can do about it. But this is what I'm having to drive my child past every morning so she can go to elementary school. There's no tickets given for needles being disposed of, public intoxication. When you have an OD out here, like on the front lawn, like why are we not? I understand that financially they don't have the means to pay it, but to continually allow them to just keep doing this, and the cops to say, we'll see you the next go around, because they know it's going to happen again. It's just so frustrating. Like, I'm paying taxes. We're paying a lot more taxes than I ever did when I moved into this town. I just want to feel like we've got some forward momentum and it's a safe place to raise my child. So thank you.
Thank you.
She all done?
Yes.
Thank you, Mary. Chair. Yep, Pete Zandron, White River Junction, no missing me around here. And I was gonna miss public comment as I'd originally come to town hall to handle some transit, public safety and surveillance issues I brought up with you guys before and other members of the town. But after John and Lisa pulling some bullshit on me earlier this afternoon while handling a legal emergency, which I just got suddenly in, I have to suddenly say so because over the past 2 days, I've had to handle one emergency after another. And you can excuse me for being a little, but it's like I said, I haven't had proper follow-up with some issues, but I know, like, at least like, hey, Ashley, you've come talk to me in person. And part of it is like that is some of it has been good news. I mean, part of that good news earlier, I get a sudden call saying some charges, all charges I had in New Hampshire, including related to the protests at Dartmouth, were just dismissed. And I send some of you on the select board emails about that. And part of it is, yes, profanity statutes are discrimination, as New Hampshire just concurred with the federal courts. And part of the problem is the way the new administration at Dartmouth has been behaving lately. They are going out of the way to create problems. They want something to happen. I mean, and this is something that look, they're a big healthcare provider. That healthcare is turning into death care. And part of the problem is, speaking of violence lately, I mean, now we know that some of the violence other people have been experiencing are connected to the protests. I mean, yeah, I've been listening to everyone, what people have said about Carl. I agree, I've dealt with Carl before, but more people are worried about sexual comments. What about some of the MAGA comments Carl, Goslin, Kelsey, and others on the force have made, or others in town have made? And oddly enough, Elon Musk actually made a very positive comment about my presence at the recent protest over here. As it proves, not only was it not paid protesters, you actually had somebody who could call it down the line. And part of what happened Monday, I mean, Dartmouth invited someone to speak who they, at the very last minute, who they should have known better. I mean, I had to scare some people in town, especially Monday, but it was for their own good. I mean, to paraphrase an argument I made in having my federal case dismissed 4 years ago, if people are scared about me scaring them, but not scared about Dartmouth inviting somebody who's been torturing kids under the guise of medical treatment for decades. That's definite bullshit. I mean, this is what Dartmouth is having to pull, and that could happen to anyone. Yes, Dr. Williams. That's the one specifically. Who I was mentioning. Someone like that should not be allowed in any community whatsoever.
Thank you, Peter. Okay, any other public comments?
There's some folks online.
Yes. Michael, go ahead.
Hi, it's Michael Redmond, Upper Valley Haven. I came on tonight to talk about our food programs, which I will do, but I'm also just by happenstance able to hear all of the comments of expressing a certain concern about safety in the community and our work. So I'll come back to that in a second in my quick update time. On food programs, I wanted to, there's been a lot of news about the shutdown of the federal government and the impact that is now having with SNAP benefits and WIC benefits being suspended for starting in November. And Linda, you know that the Haven is taking steps to increase our supply of food that we have available, increasing our hours as well in the day to account for that. We've seen in the last week, every day between the 25 or 40% increase over what we normally see in the number of households coming to us. So we don't know how long the shutdown is going to go on, but we're concerned that all the prevalence of the news about the impact on the food programs is breaking through, and a lot of people are worried, and so we're taking it on to respond to that. To provide the help that people need as they count on us for that. And now the need is greater. And so we're responding in a way where we can continue to be helpful. So that's one thing I wanted to say. In response to the comments on safety, we also focus on safety for everyone, both our staff and the community. And we have attended meetings as part of the focus on all community safety and are happy that we've had presence there. And as John mentioned, I've been to a few of them myself, as well as the Hartstadt meetings, which are focusing on the individual people who are occupying the time of the safety presence of the town, of police and emergency services. And I think Will Fernar is doing a great job leading that. And we can talk about the number of cases that have been addressed each week by the multiple agencies that are there, that have signed waivers to allow us to participate in some confidence of dealing with people's health crises. And a lot of good results have come out of that. Not solving the problem overall, but case by case basis, a lot of great work is occurring. Now, it was also mentioned that by the staff that I'm leaving the Haven, which is occurring mid-November, and so there'll be a new person coming on to head this organization. Will be living in town in the area when he arrives. But we have been focusing on planning for community meetings as a regular part of our work as we open the Low Barrier Shelter, as we have had regular meetings opening prior to the Lebanon shelter, and meetings with the police as well, and emergency services, which we've done in Lebanon.
You probably couldn't hear the timer went off.
I didn't. I'll stop there, and I'm happy to come at another time while I'm still here, but it'll be picked up in the future as part of our presence to have an open dialogue with the community, focus on safety, hear their concerns, and try to address them. Thank you.
Thank you.
Marie, go ahead.
Marie, go ahead.
Hi, Marie Elvin, Hartford Avenue, White River. I'm speaking on intimidation relating to the article. When John arrived, I don't know if it was 2 or 3 years ago now, I immediately started communicating with him regarding the HPD and how they were not doing their jobs. by not enforcing the ordinance at the Wilder parking lot. I indicated my feelings of distrust toward Chief Sheldon and his attitude toward dealing with me and others regarding the park and ride in general. Besides being so disappointed in this article, after having an ongoing communication with John, there were a couple of things that stood out to me regarding the harassment article this past weekend. One was how the accuser mentioned how Chief Kelly just had the attitude she just didn't want to deal with it. I too get this feeling from Chief Kelly. She just doesn't want to deal with it, so she doesn't. The second thing was how they treated this girl after she filed a complaint against Ebenhauser. There were a few times when I would arrive home to have a cop car cruise quickly by my home within seconds of me arriving there. This happened a few times, and I had mentioned it to John, thinking, I bet they're trying to intimidate me. To which he said, I don't think so. They wouldn't do that. Then a cruiser would be seen on the street facing my home at various times. I certainly appreciate seeing the police drive by once in a while, but thought, was there more to this going? Was there more going on here? It seemed totally out of character and not appropriate. Again, John said, no, they wouldn't do that. To which I said, if something happens to me, John, make sure you look to the HPD. After I started to attend this outreach group, there was a meeting when Chief Kelly said to me, we noticed you hadn't mowed your lawn and we're thinking of doing a welfare check on you. Really? What the hell was that all about? Cruisers continued to park on the street facing my home. After one outreach meeting, I woke to find another cruiser sitting there facing my house with his lights on as I opened my curtains at 8 a.m. He left before I had a chance to get dressed and go out and see what the problem was. I had emailed both John and Chief Kelly about this to see what they might have thought, should they have woken to this. This too was blown off. On October 16th at 3 p.m., I noticed the unmarked police vehicle, which I guess we've got two, sitting on the street again, facing my home. Sat there for 20 minutes and left. Perhaps they don't know.
The timer, Marie, excuse me, the timer just went off.
Great. I'll email you the rest.
Thank you, Marie. Okay, any other public comments? Any other online? Yep. Mike, go ahead.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Can you hear me okay?
Yes, we can, Mike.
Thank you. Mike Morris, Hartford, Vermont. I called up. I had a couple of things I wanted to bring up, but it seems like you have some more serious issues to deal with, especially with some of these concerns with these women speaking up about with the coalition complaints. But anyways, I want to ask about ordinances and regulations in town that I've watched over the last few years getting more and more negligent about being addressed, like signage. I find signage all over the place for window cleaning, log home repairs. I mean, unauthorized signage advertisements in town. Being a previous business owner, I wasn't allowed to do that type of advertising. And it seems like the town is not picking up the signs, or the state the way they used to if someone did this. Secondly, I'm very concerned about this year's budget coming up here. We have been neglecting our roads for many, many years. An ex-manager of the town always said we were kicking the can down the road, and I think we have been. Drive around town. Our roads in severe condition right now. We had a major flooding this spring, ditches, roads washed out, everything else. And we haven't been maintaining the roads we used to. We used to blow out culverts, driveway culverts and ditches and clean them out. So damage didn't get done. We had a severe storm, and we're not doing that anymore. So we put that in the budget. We put a lot of money into fire and police, but I think we forget that our public roads are the ones that get our safety, our first responders to there by having good roads to get them there. And I hope we pay more attention to our roads. That's a big emphasis I want you to hopefully think about in this budget. And I don't know, but you're in a tough position right now. I would love to give you more information, but I think you've had enough tonight. Thank you for your time.
Thank you, Mike. Any others, Miranda? Okay, so we will close public comment and open to select board comments and announcements. Eric, I'll start with you if you have anything.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Thanks to all of you who came today or tonight to share public comment. It has not been unheard. A few notes that I jotted down because all of this has not consolidated in my brain yet. But Thursday night we have an executive session with the town manager to talk about some issues related to the police department. So I hope we'll learn some more. As far as the path forward goes, there's no simple solution. But know that we are not completely unaware of the challenges that we face as a town. And I'll point to the budget guidance memo that the board provided to staff some weeks ago. Public safety and Department of Public Works were identified as priorities for us. So, and the draft budget that we have reflects that. Obviously, we've got a lot more work to do and a long ways to go, but these things are on our minds. We don't know necessarily all the details. I don't think we have immediate answers and solutions. I don't know that anyone does. The fact is, as a society, we're in a state of collapse. And that is not going to be something that is, we're not going to be immune from the fallout. And we're just going to have to do the best we can. And a large part of this is how we come together as a community. The government can do a lot, and we're going to try to do things. Obviously we don't expect people to pave roads or do the drainage ditches or whatever. But I mean, that's part of the reason that the coalition was started, was based on success stories elsewhere in Rutland, in Springfield. How do we get people in neighborhoods active, and how can that be contribute to the solution? It's not an easy thing to do. Springfield had some success stories. I think with Sergeant Fernari heading the group up, it's a good time to reset and reevaluate. So I'll leave it at that, but I just want people to know that they've been heard, and thanks for coming tonight. Thank you.
Thank you, Eric. Brandon?
Yeah, echoing the same things that Eric has mentioned. Really appreciate everyone coming tonight and making comments and shedding some light on their experiences in town. I will be reaching out. I would like to continue these conversations and have our community be involved as we try to make a way forward.
Thank you. I really appreciate everyone who came and spoke tonight. It's very helpful to us as leaders in the town, and I'll speak for myself as a board member to hear directly from you about your observations, your frustrations, and your experiences on topics that are extremely important to well-being in our community. I'll just say it's really, personally, I feel extremely
just disappointed, disheartened, and disgusted by learning about some of the behaviors that have been allowed in our police department. And it's, it's disturbing and disheartening to want to believe in the institutions that are there to protect us, and to learn that the culture of those institutions allow for some really, despicable behaviors. And I feel for the people that have been impacted directly by that. And I want to be part of, seeking questions and accountability for making sure that this, the culture is addressed overall, and that there's ways to ensure that people can speak up. So yeah, thank you.
Thank you, Ida. Mike?
Just want to thank people for coming. That's it.
Thank you, Mike. Tim?
Yeah, I'm kind of new to this, but I still fundamentally think we have a great community here, but obviously there's some daunting challenges ahead, and they have emerged on all levels around our state. We have, I sometimes think, we're the town of Hartford and we have to do our own battles, but I also want to suggest that, and I know people are feeling some sense of frustration, and I heard a lot of very powerful comments tonight, but we probably need to create another venue to have these dialogues. We've talked about these community outreach sessions that we're trying to do, and it's really hard to process the information tonight in this type of venue, obviously with a 2-minute thing, and we hear your comments and then we try and digest it and figure some stuff out. But so I'm just going to encourage us to continue to stay on this, continue to talk as a community, and hopefully come up with some new solutions that we can work together on. And I just really encourage people to kind of get off the blame game and maybe come up with sort of a different mindset around these issues, that we are indeed all well-intentioned and trying to work together to work this out and make Hartford a better place to live.
Thank you.
Whoa.
Ashley?
I'm really frustrated to hear about additional complaints that were made about sexual harassment in our town that weren't followed up on.
Allegedly.
Are you serious? Don't.
Yes,
It's
I'm
okay.
serious, Heidi. Thank you for asking.
All of that being said, I will agree with what Ida said. I'm committed to further investigating these claims and accountability, because it shouldn't be allowed. And whether it's on the police department or whether it's within town staff, we need to be really clear about what culture is acceptable in the town of Hartford, and we need to be clear leaders. And I think that what I'm hearing from community right now is that they are looking for more clear leadership. They're looking for people to be more involved. And, I myself admit that I haven't been able to make it to an outreach committee meeting, and that it is such a priority. One of the things that I have as a suggestion perhaps is that we look to the organization Braver Angels that does a citizens-led solutions. I don't know if it's a workshop or if it's a full collaborative effort. I don't know if it's a one-time thing or if they work with a town, but essentially I think that we had the right idea with the outreach committee, and then we failed miserably in the implementation of it. And we actually caused harm to community members who were stepping up and trying to help. And I don't know if that was fully intentional or if it just, we kind of like lost the ball somewhere. But I really appreciate all the people who have served on the committee and all of the subcommittees who are showing up, who are trying to help. And I think we need to do a better job of actually giving you those tools that you're asking for and following through on the plans and ideas that the committee has. So yeah, I'm hoping Braver Angels can be a tool for that. And yeah, I'm happy to send an email to you, John, and to the rest of the board for with a distribution of information about that program. And if you guys want me to be the lead on reaching out to them about that. I'm happy to do so, but I think we should get some help in dealing with this.
Okay, and my final comments, I want to thank people who came and those who have left already. I know it's hard to come here, and it's hard sometimes to talk about issues, but I think we have to be very careful about accusations. They can be very hurtful. And I'm not saying one way or the other, but I think we have to be very careful about how we speak, who we speak to. And I do think it's important to try to go to the sources. And some people have said they don't feel satisfied. So I think you have to keep going back. We don't always have the big picture here. I actually think it's great, Mike Morris talking about public works and roads, because I didn't even know until this last summer why it's so hard to build our roads, and that our DPW with the staff that we have work on 5 miles of paved roads per year, and the gravel roads 2.5 miles. And we've got the largest amount of roads in the state. So I think, everything's in context. We have to learn, but we also have to be patient, and we also have to be respectful. Everyone deserves respect. So I am thankful that people came, that they felt that they could be heard. I hope we can do what we can do. And, we can't satisfy everybody, but we will take all of this into consideration. So thank you. Okay, appointments. So we have 3 reappointments, and one person is here for the reappointment, which I think is great. I know all 3 of these people. I'm very pleased that they are renewing their interest in working on some of these commissions. So the first one, consider the reappointment of Allison Childs, excuse me, to the Parks and Recreation Commission for a 3-year term beginning October 28th, 2025 and ending October 27th, 2028. I'll take a motion.
Madam Chair,
Yes, Mike.
I move that the select board reappoint Allison L. Childs to the Parks and Recreation Commission for a 3-year term beginning October 28th, 2025 and ending October 27th, 2028.
Is there a second?
I'll second that motion.
Okay, Tim seconds the motion. Any comments, questions before we vote? All right, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
So passes. Next one is consider the reappointment of Esme Cole to the Energy Commission for a 3-year term beginning October 28th, 2025 and ending October 27th, 2028. Esme, you want to step up?
Hi, hello.
Hello, Esme. Thank you for being our representative.
Oh my gosh, thank you for all of your service and just, public comment really pulls at you emotionally. So it's really, I'm so impressed with the way you are navigating this. Anyway, we're here to talk about the Energy Commission, and thank you for considering my reappointment. I'm happy to answer any questions you might have about either my previous term or things ahead, but here to chat.
You have any questions for Esme?
My comment is that it seems like the Energy Commission is doing some great work. We had a presentation of some of the overlays, and that's awesome. And I'm just encouraging you guys to keep cranking and doing the great work you're doing.
Hey,
Esme, just gonna say it's an honor to be the liaison to this committee. Esme brings a lot, experience and knowledge of state level policy and kind of things going on. So thank you for being part of it and dedicating time every month to it and beyond that. I thought this is a little off topic and maybe I'll follow up with you separately, but since you're here and it piqued my interest in your application that you're part of a public health caucus in the state at the state level. And it reminded me of a conversation I had recently, talking to the town nurse and just sort of tossing the idea around like, do we
would there be a benefit of like a public health commission at a state level? And I wonder if that could be something that could support our town nurse role and potentially get involved with some of the, you know, public health safety issues that we're hearing from citizens as well. So not exactly an energy commission topic, but if you have any brief thoughts to share on that idea, and we can talk more later, perhaps.
Well, you know, as you know, especially Ida, being your profession, like public health is everything. And energy is obviously very interwoven in that. We do have an a public health council of the Upper Valley that exists. And actually, I'll put a flag on your calendars if you'd like on this Friday, Halloween. In the morning, there's a breakfast that anyone is welcome to join. And especially, I think it would be wonderful for public officials. I'll actually be speaking on a panel at that breakfast, and I can give you the details. I don't have them right in front of me, but whoever's interested. But I think, you know, at that meeting in particular, it's a bi-state. So obviously Vermont and New Hampshire, which is great to cross-compare policies that are working, that aren't working. Where are the dire needs? Where do we need to fill in the gaps? And how do we put our heads together? Which is obviously we're in the hub here in the Upper Valley, so we can make the most of, you know, all of the resources we have here. But I think it's a perfect place for those conversations because, like we said, public health is everything, and public safety is public health, and drinking water is public health, and energy is public health. So, yeah, the more places to give time and space to those conversations, I think the better.
Great. Yeah, I would love to hear about the
Yeah.
or the information for the event on Friday.
Absolutely.
And if you can share it with John too, or I don't know if our community nurse may already be aware of the event, but if not, it'd be great to have her in the loop about it too.
That would be wonderful.
Yeah, great. Thank you.
Eric?
Thank you, Madam Chair. Thank you, Esme, for stepping up to reapply to be a commissioner. I just wanted to make one brief comment, which is I really like your network potluck idea that you had in your application.
Yeah.
And so I think that's a great idea to help with communication among the committees and commissions, and even if it's just some exploration of current projects and things like that, and making different commissions and committees aware of the other's work. So I think that's great. Thank you.
Good. That's great feedback. I haven't actually yet posed this to the commission itself. So this is just my own idea here, but I think that would be something very much of interest. I keep hearing more and more from folks on different committees like, hey, what are you guys doing right now on the Energy Commission? And so I think, you know, we're working on public outreach a little bit better in our marketing. A commissioner who's kind of given that role hasn't been able to finish it quite yet, that job, but we're going to work together and keep promoting that. And I think, yeah, combining all amazing forces like on CAST and even, you know, the Planning Commission and everyone here, whoever is interested, you know, I think as both a social community building event, but also as, you know, really policy discussion, how can we combine efforts? So thank you. I'm glad. I'll see if folks are willing to help me put that together.
Great. Thank you.
Thank you. And thanks for your time on the commission. You had quite a legacy and we are so appreciative.
Is there anybody online? All right, I'll take a motion.
Madam Chair?
Yes, Eric?
I'd be delighted to make a motion. Move that the board reappoint Esme Cole to the Energy Commission for a 3-year term beginning October 28th, 2025 and ending October 27th, 2028.
Is there a second?
A second.
All right, Ida? Any other questions, comments before we vote? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. You're on.
Thank
Thank
you.
you.
Looking forward to it.
Thanks for
Esme.
hanging out so
Thank you.
long.
Okay, we'll move on then to consider the reappointment of Ted Levin to the Hartford Conservation Commission for a 4-year term, beginning October 28th, 2025 and ending October 27th, 2029. Boy, that seems like a long time ago. So, okay. Is there a motion for Ted?
Madam Chair,
Yes, Mike?
I move that the select board reappoint Ted Levin to the Hartford Conservation Commission for a 4-year term beginning October 28th, 2025 and ending October 27th, 2020.
Is there a second?
I'll second that.
All right, second from Eric. Any questions, comments? All in favor, say aye.
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 7-0. All right. Thank you all. And we will move on to the town manager's report.
Yes, thank you, Madam Chair. I do want to point out that the town's external auditors are working at Town Hall to review the 2025 budget year. The members of the Select Board are encouraged to stop in for a brief check-in. I gather Mary and Eric have already done so, usually on the third floor at the Town Hall. We expect to receive their results on November 25th. I'd like to thank Vital Communities and Braver Angels for co-hosting a meeting on the topic of difficult conversations with constituents on October 23rd in Enfield. It was fun to get together with Select Board members Ashley Andreas, Miranda Dupre, and about a dozen other folks and 2 excellent facilitators. On Wednesday, October 29th, VLCT will host a second Zoom chat on the topic of VLCT's legislative priorities in the field of public safety. So if anybody has any great ideas, please pass them along to me, as I will have an opportunity to advocate for their inclusion in the lobbying that is done by VLCT on public safety matters. And we're talking everything about help to municipalities dealing with syringe removal issues, more funding to support local agencies dealing with mental illness, homelessness, and other issues. So if you have anything you feel is related to public safety and want the legislature to be attentive to it, please let me know and I'll pass it on. There'll be a special Select Board budget meeting on Tuesday of this week, October 30th.
Thursday.
I'm sorry, Thursday. It says Thursday and I read Tuesday. Old habits. At 6 p.m. for budget presentations on fire, police, and dispatch. The following week, there'll be a special Select Board budget meeting on Thursday, November 6th. The next regular Select Board meeting will take place on Wednesday, November 12th, because you guessed it, Tuesday, November 11th is the Veterans Day holiday, national holiday. There's a couple of extra items on the consent agenda table which relate to past Select Board action. The collective bargaining agreement for the town's new clerical workers union has not been signed. I neglected at the late hour of last meeting to get signatures collected. So if everybody except Mike Hoyt, who was not present for the vote, would sign off on that document, that would be very good. Thank you. There's also a reminder that the Select Board recently voted to accept 2 forgivable $50,000 water system loans for asset management planning. One for each the Hartford and Queechee systems. The state processed and you all signed the first one for WPL-354. The second one the state has recently supplied for WPL-355. That'll cover both systems. That's there in the signature pile. I was going to mention the emergency food appeal, but I see my friend and neighbor Michael Redmond has mentioned that they're looking to raise funds because of the emergency food appeal necessitated by the government shutdown that's soon to affect folks receiving benefits. And finally, I did want to make one brief statement, and that is as follows. It is unfortunate that the Valley News story about the HPD Outreach Division personnel issues was so one-sided. However, it is understandable. And that is because the town did not and cannot discuss the details of personnel matters publicly. This is to assure the privacy rights of all concerned are protected. As has been mentioned on Thursday night of this week, I'll be providing an update on these matters to the Select Board in executive session. Beyond that, Madam Chair, I do have a few highlights from other departments that I could make, if you don't mind indulging me. First, as to the Hartford Fire Department, they point out that the department hosted a well-attended open house in recognition of Fire Prevention Week. Community members engaged with fire personnel, toured apparatus, and participated in fire safety demonstrations. The event successfully promoted fire safety awareness and strengthened community relations. The community nurse has provided a quarterly update, and among those updates is that through outreach and initiatives, approximately 5 hours per week of the community nurse's time are dedicated to outreach, excluding training days. The nurse is actively participating in the situation table, which has been discussed earlier tonight, which is an effort by HPD and social service agencies to bring help to those in the community who may need it most. There's also work to contribute to the development of a mutual aid task force in collaboration with the Bugby Senior Center and community volunteers. This initiative aims to support vulnerable seniors with transportation, errands, home safety, and companionship, reducing reliance on the nurse for low utilization clients. The communications and media specialist, JD, notes that the updated portion of the budget of the website to be more helpful for residents has been posted. Please see key dates, drafts, and some information about the town's budgeting procedure. Dana, our environmental sustainability coordinator, notes that Parks and Rec signed a contract with Fryer Architecture to perform a master study that will outline the work scope required to make the Barwood Arena more energy efficient and easier to manage when it comes to its internal environment. Ultimately, the goal is to make WABA an efficient building, which will both lower the facility's energy consumption cost and make operating the facility easier. Parks and Rec notes that the Wilder Historical Marker, a project spearheaded by residents Harry Kendrick, Phil Sargent, and Bonnie Arnold, is near completion. Additional split rail will be added near the patio area. The historical marker highlights the Wilder Village and paper mills. A mill wheel will be brought up from the river's edge and placed near the marker in the spring. Parks and Rec also wants to welcome Victoria Lester to the Parks and Rec team. Victoria took over the part-time administrative assistant position within the department. While she orients to the department, her main focus will be on permitting and arena park scheduling and support. The Department of Parks and Rec is working on budget presentations to be made on November 18th. They're still looking for a few more trunks for their annual trunk or treat event on November 1st. And finally, our Hartford PD notes that their outreach division continues to participate in weekly situation tables. The Woodstock Hartford Situation Table has handled seven situations and closed 6 of them out. And that's the report, ma'am.
Thank you. All right, so we are moving on to the board report, motions and ordinances. The first is the FY 27 budget presentation from our assessor.
Thank you. I failed to bring my laptop with me from home this morning, so Miranda, can you pull up my slides? We'll start with page 44 in the agenda, I guess. Yeah. All right, we'll start with 42. I'll go back.
Oh, you want to just jump down into it?
See where you are. Okay. So on that page, on that slide, the overarching responsibility of the assessor is assessment equity on the grand list. Assessment equity is generally the degree to which assessments bear consistent relation to market value. In order to achieve this, assessors must understand appraisal methods and property assessment administration in Vermont. And I'll speak about this a little more at the end of my presentation. Assessors must determine the value of all property as of April 1st of each year. Any changes due to building permits, subdivisions, etc., must be applied for the tax year. The recent 2025 reappraisal costs are not included in the fiscal year 26 budget expenses that you'll see on the next slide. So on this slide, I have the fiscal year 2026 budget, which was $303,058. And the proposed budget for fiscal year 2027, which is $321,822, an increase of $18,764, and that's roughly a 6% increase. The vast majority, about 2/3 of the increase, is due to salaries, benefits, and those items. And there's a bit of a breakdown. You'll see salaries are increasing $8,441, benefits $1,391, retirement $1,721, workers' comp is down $225. And I mentioned the $1,721 for retirement. That's for the health insurance that the town pays to retired assessors that were here before me. There were, I believe, 2 that they have their health insurance paid by the town. So the retirement for future retirement for current employees is $1,156, an increase. So a total increase of $12,484. So on the next slide, you see the breakdown of the wages for fiscal year 26. Wages were $162,089. That's an increase for 27 of $8,441, or a total of $170,530. That's for 2 full-time employees. On the next slide is a breakdown of the health-related costs. So fiscal year 26 was $56,361. It's now projected to be $57,900, with a total increase of $1,539. And on the next slide, there were 2 or 3 line items that increased rather significantly. So the first one is travel and meetings. You'll see that that's projected cost of $1,200 for travel and meetings. That's an increase of $1,000. And that's because the travel and meeting expenses for fiscal year 26 were funded largely by encumbered funds. Membership dues only went up by $50. Recruitment and training budget for fiscal year 26 was cut for budgetary purposes. So you'll see there's a $1,350 increase in that line item. And then contracted services, that is projected at $46,350, or $2,150 increase. And that is from notification by some of our contracted vendors what their charges will be next year. So I've already heard from some of the vendors, but not all of them. So that's projecting out what we'll have for an increase for fiscal year 27. Lastly, as I mentioned, I wanted to discuss at the beginning, I mentioned I wanted to get back to assessment equity and assessing practices. So I've been holding off. I think I might have mentioned this possibly last year or sometime earlier this year. I've been holding off on hiring or asking to hire a third person for the department. We could use a third person for a couple of reasons. My plan is to retire in May of 2028. And there just aren't any, like so many other industries, there's nobody coming up behind us old timers to fill our seats when we're gone. So my thought was, and it's really twofold, is to bring somebody in before I retire, have that person, and this is getting back to the equity and some of the assessing practices, have a third person come in and do cyclical inspections. That would be their primary job, do cyclical inspections of all the properties in town. So we would do 20 or 25%, somewhere around there, of all the properties each year in town. So that in 5 or 6 years, we have every property looked at. So that our assessing data on every property is generally up to date, at least within 4 or 5 years. That will help with the new legislation that every town in Vermont reassess every 6 years now. One reason why I've been holding off on doing this, well, a couple of reasons. One is I know it's a lot of money for the taxpayers to shoulder, but the legislature is also still working out new rules, new statutes for assessing practice. So I don't want to hire somebody if they decide suddenly that the state's going to take over all the assessing practices and we have a third person that we don't need in the department anymore. So I've been holding off as long as possible. If we decide to go that route, I'll have to probably present that next year for the fiscal year 28 budget. But my other thought is to bring somebody in. We'll get the cyclical inspections done and train them to take my seat when I retire. So the town is guaranteed to have somebody ready to take my seat. As it is, it's going to be a gamble when I retire. If anybody else is stepping forward or applying for the job, there's nobody out there to take these positions. And it's not just Vermont, it's nationwide. I know it's happening in New Hampshire. I get calls from towns in New Hampshire asking me to do their assessing work. But I was on a committee for the International Assessors Association 10 years ago. And one of the other committees did a study and they found, this was 10 years ago, they found that within 10 years, 50% of the assessors nationwide would be retiring and there's nobody coming up to take those positions. So it's an issue nationwide. And it's something that we really need to think about and try to get somebody in position to fill my seat when I leave in around May of 28.
Ashley? Yeah, I was just gonna ask, who is the second person?
We have an assistant assessor, Christina Tardy.
Okay. Are they interested in
No.
moving up from within? Okay.
Generally, we try to make it a practice during budget season, not to identify specific employees, but rather talk about the positions for
Okay.
their privacy.
Okay, thank you.
Sure.
Okay, I was just curious. And do you find that there's an attraction, like do folks that end up as an assessor maybe have experience in like bank appraisals, or is it kind of its own track?
Yes, the assessing profession is the profession by accident. Nobody grows up wanting to be an assessor. And so it's usually real estate agents or fee appraisers, real estate appraisers that jump into the assessing profession. They're looking for the state steady pay and the benefits. And that's what I did. I was a fee appraiser. My father was an assessor before me, and I swore I would never do assessing work. I would flip burgers at McDonald's before I came into assessing, and here I am.
Okay.
I got tired of the feast or famine on the fee appraiser wheel.
Well, I'm interested. I wonder if not adding into your budget request an additional salary position, is there an interest in some recruitment? Oh, and I guess that's maybe a question too, John, for you, if whether the departments recruit for themselves or if that is something they request and we do at a higher level.
Generally, the departments recruit for staffing needs in close consultation with HR and as needed, the town manager,
Okay.
but only within the budget. that the board sets.
Right, right. You could, for example, you couldn't recruit for a position that isn't funded in the budget.
Not unless we ask the select board to approve that special funding in other ways.
Oh, thank you.
Rick, I have a quick question. If the town was interested in recruiting someone, approximately how much money would that?
Yeah, well, that's another issue I didn't even address, but I don't have a real strong idea of what the cost would be. I was just too busy this year with the reassessment, so I had no time to even give that some thought. So I don't want to commit to any numbers, but
That's fine.
yeah, it's depends on the
Appreciate it.
salary and all the
Yeah,
benefits and all that.
Appreciate it. Thank you.
Yep.
Eric?
Thank you, Madam Chair. Thank you for your presentation, Rick. I'm glad we had you on the agenda a little earlier than the last time we saw you. So in the budget guidance, we asked, or the board guidance includes a statement, include a narrative describing additional staff positions and or major equipment needs over a 3-year span. So pretty clear that you've given us the staff picture of that. On the equipment side of the equation, maybe in your line of work, it's more the software, the platform that and other software. Did you see anything on the horizon, or are we pretty much on cruise control there?
Nope, no, I don't expect any big changes in any platform. If a third person comes on, we'll need a license for some of the software, but those are usually smaller dollar items, $50 for a license here and there. So no big expenses that I can see in the near future.
Great. And do you have, this is a little out of the scope of tonight's discussion perhaps, but tangential, a sense of what makes assessing so unattractive as a profession? Seems like it could be kind of interesting to me, but maybe I'm an outlier.
Yeah.
I am an outlier.
There's no one certain thing, except that usually we're the least popular person in town. But there's really no certain item. It's just sort of an unknown profession. People grow up saying, well, I want to be a policeman or a fireman or a doctor or attorney, but nobody gives it any thought as to being an assessor. And like I said, it's not just the assessing industry, it's a lot of industries right now that just can't find any help.
Given the uncertainty around what the state will do, is there potential to contract like a multi-year contract? Rather than a full-time employee, basically bring a contractor on, in which case, if the state changes their approach, then we have an easy way of terminating that relationship, or easier.
That's an option, but probably not viable because the contracted assessing firms are in the same boat. They can't hire enough help. So they're already overwhelmed with work. They can't take on a lot of the assessing firms, contracted assessing firms can't take on any more clients.
Okay, thank you.
Just curious, Rick, when you talk about these cyclical inspections, you use the word inspection, not assessment.
Right.
In town, in relation to our townwide assessment, I think you've made the argument that you want to do an assessment at the same time so that there's real equity. Are these inspections just to check on permits and things, or is it part of a larger reassessment?
Well, it's part of the larger reassessment. So what we would do, and this has become popular in New Hampshire because New Hampshire was in the same situation years ago. So a lot of towns started doing these cyclical inspections. So in, say, 5 years, every property's been re-inspected. So when it comes time to do a townwide reassessment, we don't have to worry about finding a firm that can go out and look at every property in that 1 or 2 years that they're doing the reassessment project. That part of the job has already been done internally. So when it comes time for the reassessment, it's just the number crunching, the statistical part of it. And that could even be done in-house if need be. So in the long run, it saves the town some money.
Data collection rather than,
Right, so on these cyclical inspections, they're out doing the data collection, measuring the house, make sure the measurements are correct. Making sure the data we have on the house is correct. The acreage is correct, the outbuildings are all correct. And so on. So we make sure that the data we have on the property is correct. That's step number one in having equitable assessments. And then values are set as of the date of the reassessment year. So it's April 1st. So in this case, right now, we have values as of April 1st of 2025. We don't change that assessment until the next reassessment. And so if it's six years, it's going to be 2031, unless there's a physical change to the property or correction to the physical data that we have on the property. So if we go out and find that the house was mismeasured, or they added on a deck and we didn't know about the deck, we pick up those changes, which will affect the assessed value, but it's still back to the 2025 market values that we're setting for everybody. So if we pick up, we're out, let's say in 2028, we find that there's a deck on the house that we didn't have, we're not changing that value to 2028 market values, we're changing it to 2025, so that there's equity among all the properties. It has some puzzled looks on faces, but I explained it the best I could.
Thank you. Just one more brief question. Can you remind me how we fund the assessments? Do we have to add to a reserve account for that, or is that handled in a different fashion?
state funding,
Okay,
Right.
thank you.
thankfully.
Yes.
Anybody online?
You got someone at the rostrum.
Oh, yes. Kathy.
Hello,
Hello, Kathy.
Kathy Melisick, Wilder, Vermont. I know everybody freaked out, especially this year when they got their assessments because they were so much higher. But can you give a non-assessor person an idea of how you think this will work out over the grand list? Because it could be that some of our rates will go down, or no? I'm probably confusing it.
That would have already been reflected in the current tax bills you got.
Okay,
They did use the reassessment values.
okay,
So some people saw increase in their tax bill.
right.
Mine went up 300 or 400%.
Yep.
Others came
I'm
down.
sorry.
That's all right. I feel the pain. Others came down because there was
Right.
equity across the board, which meant that some types of housing was overestimated in the
Yep.
past and some was under, and we're catching up.
I probably didn't ask my question
Oh,
correctly,
sorry.
because it's very complicated. Are those changes reflected, are they gonna be reflected in the budget that you're working on now for the next fiscal year? The overall grand list?
Well,
'Cause
we've
it wouldn't
asked
have reflected against
every
last
year
year's
we-
budget. It'll be the
every
coming
year-
budget,
Every year we ask the assessor for an estimate
right?
of any grand list growth.
So we'll have that for this budget year.
That's right.
Okay,
But
got it.
Rick's already estimated no growth.
Okay,
So that means that you have basically the same grand list to multiply against our draft
okay,
budget, and that will determine what everybody's tax bills look like.
okay, I think I got it. But I may see you on a budget night.
Oh, please.
Thank you.
There's plenty coming up.
Thank you, Kathy. Okay, thank you, Rick, really appreciate it.
Thank you.
Thank you.
And Lisa, our clerk. She brought her laptop with. It's a little warm in here. Sure.
I can either that or I can try to
No,
deal with
no,
the
no,
AC.
no, Don't touch anything.
Miranda, could you
Yes.
Oh, sorry.
make me
Yes.
a presenter?
And with
And I'll
good
see if I
reason.
can figure it out.
Does it take it a minute for it to show up there?
It does.
Okay, just want to make sure it wasn't me, because it could be.
I wonder, do we need to have Nick aware of what you're doing, or Miranda?
Are you sharing?
Let me see, maybe I didn't do that part, because I'm very good at these things.
I can also, yeah. I can also share from, if it's the same presentation on the agenda.
It is.
She's done it before.
If you want to, so I don't hold
Lisa, you want me to
everybody.
share?
Sure, it says
Okay.
it's not, mine says it's not responding, I apologize. I have a hard copy in front of me too.
Can I just ask a follow-up question, just quick clarifying about the assessment? I know Rick's not here, but I think John, you might know. I just can't quite square in my brain, like if the average increase in property assessments went up by 85%, then how would that have zero impact on the total grand list value?
Well, some properties went up 500%, like mine did.
Yeah, but
And
if the average,
Right. That means lots of other people had no increase at all, or maybe even saw an assessment that was less than
We're
before.
talking about two different fiscal years though here. You're talking about a 0% increase in the coming year.
Yeah.
Right, so that we would apply to FY 27.
I think
FY
it's
26.
ready, so I think that this discussion, we need to move on, keep moving. I'm sorry. I'm cognizant that we're late.
Thank you, guys, and thank you, Miranda, for pinch hitting for me. The second slide is just a quick overview. I know you all got it in advance of some of sampling of some of the things the clerk's office does. So if folks aren't familiar, please feel free to stop by. We're happy to give you a tour and talk to you about what we do. We're there 8 to 5, Monday to Friday. We have 2 budgets in the clerk's office. We have the election administration, and this stays roughly the same. There's a summary on slide number 3 about salaries, advertising, contracted services, and materials and supplies. It outlines a little bit for you what those are. The biggest nut is the Board of Civil Authority and election work and compensation for elections, and then the BCA and Board of Abatement, of which you all are part. You know how busy they get for abatements, and this year, especially with tax appeals. And we do attend some meetings and trainings as well. If you look at slide 4, I've just spelled it out comparatively from FY 26, what was approved and what's proposed this year. There's very little change. It's gone down a little bit. This particular portion of the clerk's budgets are fairly predictable. I usually build in funds for an unanticipated special election in the event that it happens. It's happened twice since I've been here. I know, believe me, I know. But that is always built in there. So you rarely will see too many changes unless something's coming down the pike I'm not aware of that's dictated outside of what we do. Some of the election highlights that we had on the next slide. In FY 27, the budget does include an anticipated continuation of hearing some tax appeals. I anticipate, based on what I've heard from the assessor and what we have heard in our office, folks who didn't quite meet the grievance deadline or are just realizing what the impact from their tax bills might feel to them, they may come before the assessor for a grievance, and in the event they're not satisfied with the results of the grievance, they'd come before the Board of Civil Authority for tax appeals, because we hadn't had any appeals for a couple of years actually until this year. But normally we have a few. We will have, we had an election in 2025 for the town and school district meeting. We didn't have any others in 2025. We do have to explore the possibility of an alternate polling location because of the various things going on at the high school. I have not fully resolved that at this point, whether it's going to impact the 2026 town and school meeting. I hope to resolve that fairly soon so we can make sure we get the word out if that's necessary. But looking long-term, that is something I anticipate we will need to have an alternate location. So I'll keep you all posted about that and the public as well.
I outlined for you on this slide how many abatement hearings the Board of Abatement had and how many meetings that was and how many abatements hearings themselves, and the same in comparison to how we've done it in the past, and the same for the property tax appeals. And then we will do again in May or June of 2027. We will do another biennial checklist review. So every 2 years we do that. And we did it this year in May and June. So for those who are interested, you could look at that a little bit more. Are there any questions about the elections administration budget so far? Yes, ma'am.
I'm wondering if we, in the case that we don't have a special election, and this is maybe a broader budget question, because it applies to many other things in all the departments, but if there's a remainder, we don't have a special election, does that money just go back like into a reserves account or?
No, generally what has happened in the past, and I'll defer to anyone else who wishes to speak, but let's say we have a shortfall internally in the clerk's office. If in consultation with the finance director and the town manager, if it's appropriate to move those funds to cover those shortfalls, so we're not tapping into other departments, or in the event that we don't need those funds, if there are other departments who had shortfalls, those same discussions occur and the funds are encumbered. You all may have had discussions about encumbered funds, and they can be applied to other departments that may have had unexpected expenses. So it doesn't get set aside again for the next time, but there often is a use for it.
Okay.
And Gail has made the point in the past, and I think she's shared it with prior boards. Once the select board has approved a budget and the voters have approved a budget, that's essentially the end of the select board's involvement in administering that budget. We do our best, of course, to steward the taxpayer dollars carefully. And sometimes there's a surplus, which increases the unassigned fund balance. And sometimes there's a deficit, which reduces it to some degree.
And the second budget that's handled through the clerk's office is vital statistics, which is basically the functioning of the day-to-day of the clerk's office. Slide number 7 just gives you a quick summary of the major categories that are covered in the budget presentation. I started with revenues for you. We do generate a decent amount of revenue for an administrative office. We're up, I anticipate growing a little bit from last year, and I've broken out for you where those revenues come from. Liquor licenses tend to be fairly stable in terms of the amount. Marriage licenses vary. Dog licenses pretty stable as well as. And town clerk fees, just so you know what that includes copies that people pay for. It includes a portion of every recording fee. One portion is required to be set aside in a reserve account by state statute. And then the balance goes into your general fund. And that's what that is. And there are miscellaneous funds for Green Mountain passports, which are state park passes and things like that, or certified copies that we make. So that comprises the town clerk fee. That's a fairly stable amount, at least in recent years. We don't do a lot of the DMV, so it's a fairly small amount, and we're doing less as people are processing their renewals online and going to the DMV. On slide 9, I'll have you jump to slide 12 soon. But we've had staffing changes, as some of you may know, in our office for various reasons. One, as of July 1, last year's budget allowed us to have the part-time position increased to full-time. And then we've added a new assistant town clerk full-time. And so that has impacted the salaries and benefits. So when I first did this budget, all of those components were not fully in place to know what they would look like. So this is a comparison FY26 to what I was initially proposing, and the FY27 proposed you see on slide 9 is what's in your budget book. But if you jump, if you wouldn't mind, Miranda, to slide number 12, I did a supplemental slide. Thanks. I had requested a census update for our personnel, and Paula was able to get it to me in about 24 hours, which I am grateful for. So on slide 12, I'd like to just explain what this all means in case anyone has any questions. And then I'll explain further some other things that Mary caught. So on slide 12, the first column that you see that says FY27 revised, that reflects the changes from the new census data I have for our personnel. The next column that says FY27 proposed is that slide 9. And then FY26 is what was approved last year. So I just want to clarify what that is. And then the differences are outlined in the third column. The downside to what you have on your screen that you would see on mine is that I made some mistakes on there in calculations and a couple typos. So I presented to John, and I think he sent it to all of you, but if he didn't, I did also bring hard copies. But for the purposes of discussion, if you all want hard copies, I will leave them with you. But that first column, the bottom line number where it says total expenses should read $373,311.92, not $383. And the item above it, where it says total personnel, that should say 321,863.92. And then down, so that total becomes 255,261.92. So I apologize for my fingers not calculating those correctly. So your difference for your total personnel, that difference between FY26 and the revised FY27 is actually $29,206.51 with the corrections I made after getting Mary's email and getting the census information. The total expenses increases by $35,279.51. And then I subtracted our revenue numbers, and the total increase for the vital statistics budget is $33,104.51. And I'll leave with John hard copies if you all would like them so that you can refer to them later. So I apologize for how messy that is. But the majority of those, the increase in this particular budget is related to the personnel changes we've had. And I'm happy to answer any questions that you may have. Yes.
Just a brief question, thinking about just the general operations within the town clerk's office, and I really appreciate all your work. Is there anything that we're missing in terms of making investments in like modernization, computers, scanning, software? Like, is there any other towns in Vermont that you feel like we could look to like, you know, because I kind of joke sometimes about Hartford that we sort of think of ourselves as a little town, but I think arguably we're a city at this point. And I just want to make sure that you feel comfortable asking for any kind of like technological innovations or things that could make the job and the functionality of the town clerk's office better for you.
Well, thank you for that question. I was getting as close as I've ever been in my time here to figuring out which vendor to select for getting our land records online. Our reserve funds are for that purpose, so I wouldn't be coming before you except for the dollar amount, presumably, and choosing the vendor. So those funds are available. Prior to our clerk's passing this spring, we were pretty close. I'd narrowed it down to 2 vendors, but we just didn't have the capacity to do anything except try to keep our head above water with the volume of work that we had. So I'm hoping to get back to that this year. I will just remind you, we have 3 elections, which is a total of 6 months of our time, basically. So I can't promise you it'll happen in this coming fiscal year, but it is on the radar. We have the funds for that. The only in terms of software and things like that, all of our documents are already scanned. You may not have known that. Some of you have been on the board are aware of that. When a researcher comes to, they do have to come to the clerk's office to get it. But there are 4 public terminals that they can access that information. They do not have to go into the vault, open a book, make copies. They just print it right from, those may eventually, I heard Eric's question to Rick, we'd be talking with IT over the coming years as to when it's appropriate for those workstations to be updated if is needed. And I would defer to them to kind of guide me through that process. But that's kind of where we are. That's the one thing that I think ultimately would make the public's life, the professionals who do the work in our office and ourselves, that may help. But we have a system in place that works and makes it as we're sort of a hybrid compared to some other towns. Some towns still just use the books and people have to go in and take all the pages out, and others have online vendors. So we've been focusing on the 3 vendors who do work in Vermont. I'd narrowed it down to 2 that seemed most appropriate to us, and had one estimate that I was just about to pull the trigger on, and that will be different now because that I needed to respond by August, and there was just no way we could head in that direction. There will be some equipment involved that's required. And again, the digitization and restoration fund that we have will cover that. So that's a nice little piece of information, but I appreciate the question. On slide 10, I did skip over that. There are a couple highlights there. Some of these things are not high priorities, but things that I think would be beneficial in terms of freeing up some space in our vault. The Vermont State Archives will allow us to transfer our vital records, death and birth, to their facility. And again, we just didn't have the staffing capacity to figure out all the nuts and bolts of how to get it there. Death and birth records now are handled in a statewide portal. So we can't use those in the vault anymore anyway. If somebody wanted to come in and get a copy, they can't get it from there. We have to get it from the state portal. So that would free up some space. So there's some functionalities like that. But I can't think of anything other than maintaining the equipment we have. I think the staffing we have currently will be adequate, 3 full-time people for what we're doing unless things change, and then I'll be back before you, but I hope that's not anytime soon. Other than that, that's pretty much where we are.
Thank you. Any other questions for Lisa? Kathy?
Kathy Melsick, Wilder, Vermont. Yeah, largely empty public area here, but I wanted to say, Sherry, who had worked in the town's office and passed away, she was an example of the kind of town staff that I'm so happy that we have here, at least everybody here. She was fantastic, and I wouldn't have wanted to deal with any of those jobs because, like with the assessor, and DPW and everybody, they take a lot of abuse, and she was wonderful. And I personally, I'm going to miss seeing her there, and already do. Thank you.
Thank you, Kathy. I'm sure Lisa appreciates it. Anybody online? All right. Thank you, Lisa. We really appreciate it. Nice updates and hard work.
Thanks, Lisa.
Thank you.
Hi, everyone. Some of you I haven't really worked directly with before. So to introduce myself, I'm Paula Nolte, and I'm the HR director, and I am also John's executive assistant. Miranda, thank you very much. I'll talk a little before we get to that. I did want to address Ashley's question about hiring. There was a little bit, Eric, you had posed a question, and I did reply a little bit about the hiring process and department head involvement. It sort of depends on the position. So for example, we currently are searching for a new public works director because Brian is moving on. And in that case, I am managing the search. So I worked with a media and communications specialist to prepare materials, and then we do advertising, you know, the usual advertising in the Valley News and social media, but we reach out to like the Water Association, places like that, specific trade things. And so I keep John updated on that. So there's also though cases where a department head calls for a national search. For example, when we had a police chief search, the town manager and the board at the time thought it would be best to hire a firm and do it that way. So depends.
Yes, Tim.
If I may, like, I just want to kind of comment, just a thought around that. When we did the town manager search last time, I thought the process actually was excellent. I'm not saying that because I was on the committee, but I'm saying that because I really think that we really tried to vet out the characteristics of town manager, what we were looking for, and obviously Dominic Cloud contributed a ton to that process. I personally think that for certain critical positions, it's such an opportunity to vet out perhaps characteristics that are needed in the community that are missed, or you know, different skill sets or strengths and weaknesses that you're looking for in a candidate. So I sometimes think, like in this particular one, for me, the public works director, very critical position in the town. All the positions are critical, but I think there should be a process where there's a little bit of a reach out kind of evaluation instrument that says, you know, what are the characteristics of the, you know, previous works director that we're good at RAD or whatever, and then have an opportunity to, like in the new hiring, to look for maybe some different strengths that are needed in the community that were missed, or something of that nature. No reflection of the person leaving. So I just want to throw out that thought to you, that I think there's a huge value there to really trying to hone in on that.
Yes, no, I agree with you. And I think you'll find that part of the process is reviewing what has happened before, what are the new things we're looking for. That's part of the conversation that John and I have, and that often involves other department heads that work with us to try and improve on that.
Awesome.
So thank you. Yes, we will be aware of that. So Human Resources 10123 is a new department that's being proposed this year. In my experience and in working with John, we feel it's a reasonable and necessary addition to town management. And I believe that we can definitely add value, for lack of a better kind of overused phrase. I work with incredibly talented department heads. We all are extra good at certain things, some planning, some management of staff, some financial. It depends, and it can change. And there are times when more human resources is needed, and there are times when, for example, well, Scott Cooney's a great example. Unless a problem happens that comes to HR, nothing comes to HR. He manages his staff super well. But, you know, so there are, it ebbs and flows. But with the amount of staff we have now, if we can go to that slide, our numbers have increased since I've been here. We're up to 116 full-time employees, which is a lot. And you've seen all the slides. And I did take SHRM, which is the Society for Human Resource Management. Their information, you know, gives 1.7 per 100. But I think of municipal HR as a very special subset. We have we're just different. You know, for example, I don't need to know about international trade rules as far as hiring staff, which is something that like SHRM would cover. I find though through VLCT and through my peer group, that is oftentimes as valuable as a larger national organization. which leads me to the next slide, which is more specific to Vermont municipalities, which still shows very clearly that we are low for the amount of staff and retirees that we have compared to our HR staff ratio. The SHRM number is, I think, too generous, because as a municipality, you know, we're very wary of our budget and our taxpayers, but we want to make sure we're doing the right thing. Having a designated HR person is going to bring us more in line with, you know, Montpelier, Essex, South Burlington, those towns. And we're used to, in talking to my municipal HR people, many people often just say, you know, I'm an office of one. You'll hear that over and over again in HR offices in Vermont municipalities. If you go to the next slide, Miranda, thank you. These are things that I both already do and am looking forward to doing better and more efficiently. There are two priorities for me that I'm excited about. One is the revision of the personnel policy. The most recent revision was in 2013. And since that time, I think we've done 4 union agreements that have all been updated and are much more applicable to staff currently. And we still have a good number of non-union staff. So that's important. That's also going to help with clarification of less attorney calls, less trying to figure out what does this really mean, more modernized. The other thing that I'm looking forward to especially is the website expansion for staff access. Working with IT technology that's already out there and free and available that I just haven't had the opportunity to get to. So looking forward to being able to do something like that. The other very important thing is the compensation management and review. I think our compensation study, which was done in May of 23, a 5-year review is going to be a very good idea. We've had a number of new positions and positions where the duties have changed. I don't think it's going to need to be a full review, but I do think, for example, the recent clerical union negotiation showed that we are in a good place. Our numbers are good. So not a big revamp. That was doing this compensation study was a good thing, but it'll be nice to have it updated. The next slide just details. There's not a lot of lines in this particular budget, but details everything. The only thing to point out is my laptop is 5 years old, and maybe when it turns 7, might be time for a replacement, but that is something that can hold off if you're concerned with the costs and the total budget. The next slide, Miranda, please. Future considerations. John encouraged me to think about a benefits assistant and administrative assistant in the future. That might make sense in the future, but for now, I think it's a little premature. I'm looking forward to being able to just dedicate my time and efforts and energy to HR. I think that's a great step for FY27. As I said, I can, you know, there's free tech out there. There's Acrisure, which is the broker we work with that has benefits management. It's just, I admit, I have not been able to take advantage of what is out there. And that's it about for me. I hope you all saw my answers. I appreciated the questions because it let me expand on a few things and state my case, I think, a little bit more for why I think this is important and valuable. And I think I, at least as the current person in this role, will do a good job and take advantage of it.
I have a question for you, Paul. And you briefly went over this, but the only thing that I came away with, especially because of your comparison chart between the other towns, is I just felt like changing the position so you were totally HR doesn't alleviate the problem that you have so many full-time. And I know that when you're full-time HR, you're dealing with people, personalities, a lot of issues. And that's why I was wondering why there wasn't, that you're still gonna end up being one person for 100 and whatever many people. Why it wasn't that you could use someone in HR and not just the administrative. I mean, I know I'm suggesting probably in another layer here, but that was my concern in looking at this, because I know how hard that must be to deal with. Because you're dealing with people, and people are different every day.
Yeah. And I think, Mary,
They sure are.
that might be something that happens, but I don't feel confident that I can, without allowing myself to spend a year spending it as a full-time HR person. I don't want to move ahead too quickly and turn out that really wasn't what we need. I had a bit of an experience with that several years ago when we thought of having a benefit person help out. And then we thought, you know what, let's try the human resource, a tech system. And it didn't work out. It wasn't right for us. We did learn something, but we spent some money on it. And so that makes me a little more cautious, not to say, and I do think actually that I have support that I necessarily didn't have before. We have the communications and media specialists that everyone approved and that we hired, who I can work closely with on getting information out there. We have our IT now has I can't say the names. I'm not supposed to say that. The help desk, who's also been terrific, helping me explore what I can do on the website, how it can be more accessible. So I think if there was another position right now, I would be not making things up, but I think I really need to establish what HR is first. And I can do that. I mean, I've been half-time and I think we've been doing okay. I just think we can do better and make it better for staff and make, avoid more issues, and that's where I am. And that's why I feel the way I feel right now.
Okay, that's fine. That was just my thought when I sat with it for a little while. So thank you, Paul.
Yes.
Ida first.
Thank you. Hi.
Hi.
I don't know if we've met before, but yeah, great to hear your presentation and your thought process around this. I just wanted to put out another potential possibility just to hear your thoughts on it. And I think there could be a couple benefits to doing it this way, although, I'm not in your seat. But what about the option of one position that remains as is, where it's split between the 50% HR and the 50% town manager assistant, and then hiring a new half-time role to work in HR as well, and share some of those duties and responsibilities. And I think, just a couple of reasons why that might be something to consider is, one, sort of thinking about Rick's point about the importance of apprenticeship essentially, and training people that can learn the skill set and learn how to work in a field, and maybe, choose that as a career, is one potential benefit. And then just budgetarily, it would be less expensive to hire an entry-level half-time person. So I don't know, just any thoughts on that idea of having it be a 2-person department, but with half-time dedicated for each role.
I think you need a full-time experienced HR person, at least one person. Our needs are such that I John could agree, I could work all day on just HR items and issues. If I were to remain in that role, half and half, then I would say I would definitely need some administrative assistance. But I don't think me only doing HR half-time and trying to train someone part-time in all of HR, I think that's too fractured. I don't think it's the wisest route to take. You may save money by hiring another part-time person, but getting that person up to full speed, when I'm split and that person is part-time, would be really hard and, to be honest with you, really frustrating. And I appreciate the understanding of the role and the position and the assistance and in all of that. But I can't stress enough, with the staff I work with now, how much I really just want a clean 1-year HR opportunity to do what I do and improve upon that, and then then I'll feel confident making a recommendation as to where the department should go next.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Eric, you had a question?
Thank you, Madam Chair. Thank you, Paula, for your presentation.
Sure.
Sort of moving back to one of the earlier slides, increased benefits of dedicated staff and HR staff, and of tying into your response to Mary's question, which I agree with that sentiment. You know, you got to get your feet on the ground before you maybe bring on an additional part-time person. But sort of tying all that together, you know, do you see a need for consultancy services to help the town understand what it is that we need? What is our trajectory? You know, just all of those bullets on that slide, laying out, you know, a strategic plan specific to HR. Is that part of your calculus here?
I think this is where, when I talk about municipal HR being different than broader general HR, it's important in this aspect, because I think I gave you the example of going to a SHRM conference, and in my experience of municipal HR, I knew more than those particular presenters about unions and about CBAs and about how all those things worked. So if I am going to need a consultant or a benefit from a consultant, they would need to know what we need. I would need to say, you know what, we have trouble with hiring. You know what, we have trouble with employee relations. You know what, our compensation matrix is really messed up. So that sort of help there may be a use for it, but until I can dedicate myself to HR, I don't feel confident that I can make the recommendations of what we need. Because yes, could someone come in who doesn't, I mean, I do consult with people that work in municipal government and municipal HR. For example, VLCT has a dedicated attorney for HR. There's smaller Vermont groups. We have a municipal HR group. So there is a lot of give and take. But to have someone come in and assist us with what we need, I think we need to first be able to identify what we need help with, what we need assistance with, instead of having someone come in and telling us. I think it needs to be a two-way thing, a give and a take.
course, the one exception, of course, is that Paula has budgeted funds for a personnel policy revision consultant. So.
Yeah. And that came about, as I said, doing the CBAs, and working with our town attorney, and that will be someone who will, I'll work through that with them.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you. Tim?
Paul, thanks for your presentation. I'm just gonna try, I know we're running late. I just want to kind of quickly go over sort of a perspective that may help the board. And, I'm of the opinion that there are certain components of any organization that are often unrecognized, or we don't necessarily invest or see the value in them. For me, I've been in facilities most of my life, and that's one of them. HR is another, and IT. Those are sort of the three that I've been involved in my career. And I'm just going to tell you a brief thing. I work for a company called Eris Solutions. We have currently have 91 employees. We, about 2 years ago, brought in a new HR director who dramatically reformed our organization in the sense that we now have pretty robust training and recruitment programs. We have a exceptional payroll and benefits administration kind of arm. And all those functions are, I believe within our HR department, we're not for profit. We have 5 people who are working in that realm. And what's resulted in that is that our culture is dramatically better. We have our staff retention is dramatically better. The whole program is like improved by a magnitude that I can't even describe. So I think, yes, I appreciate the tax bill and the fact that we're a town and New England's traditionally very frugal, but I think that we need to really carve out maybe a different model here about this HR function within this town, because from my perspective, I've just gotten on this board, but from the outside, we have had problems attracting and retaining staff and keeping them here, professional, highly performing staff. I'm not saying that a lot of our staff isn't high performing. And I know we have departments and we have department heads, but I think we need to really make an effort to carve out some additional resources in the HR realm to support you and do better work, and do exceptional work. Because I think the benefits to that are immeasurable. So, I think, yes, to do this for a year and allow you to kind of say, okay, Hartford, now that I know the full picture, this is what we'll need at the next budget cycle. I think we should take under serious consideration carving out more resources, money, time, whatever that would look like to help get you there. And I'm not even sure what that could look like, but for example, we use UKG for our platform. Do you have a software platform that we use town-wide?
No.
Yeah, so those platforms are amazing. I mean, they save a ton of time. They're accessible. You can go in there and look at your payroll. You can understand your benefits. So there's all kinds of opportunities here to really take our game up. So I think that, maybe you need a little more money or a little more resources to take us there. So that's my statement around that.
Yep. And I appreciate that. I think, I am one person who's been doing 2 positions. So if we make the decision to have one dedicated HR person there, I am going to need to transfer all the other things I do, which are considerable, to John's new employee. That's one job, is training someone else. And again, that's municipal things. There's I do the risk management. I do the social service appropriations. I do the town report. All those sorts of things that are going to need to go to a new employee. So there's that job for me to do. As I said, there are opportunities out there that I know that I just haven't had the time to tap into. You mentioned in HRIS, we have a broker for our benefits, our life insurance and our health insurance in our retiree benefits. That's Acrisure. They have programs. They have a free benefit management program that I just started talking about with them, which I would love to explore. And that is, they're great. I mean, I really appreciate the people I work with. So I worry that in trying to bulk everything up and make things better so quickly, you're going to lose, some of that's just not going to be effective. There's only, a glass only holds so much. And my concern is transferring all my duties, training a new person, figuring out what else are not the low hanging fruit, but, for example, I talked about the personnel policy. I have a plan for that. I know who I'm going to work with. I know how it's done. Updating the compensation study. I have a relationship with the firm that did our compensation study. So that's having the ability to work with them again to renew it. None of that is necessarily new stuff that's going to require more people at this stage, or, it's having the time and the ability to tap into those things that are there. So you could say, let's bring in an HRIS, let's bring in an assistant for you. If I can't get to that, that's wasted. So that's why I'm advocating for a year to do this, refresh. And then I think we'll be in a position to go to next steps. But I am really advocating to not put so much on the plate that you can't get to it.
Thank you. Anybody else? Ashley?
Thanks for your presentation and for your super helpful answers to all the questions. I had a couple of questions. One is that I'm just trying to wrap my head around now, like the current setup, which I guess maybe the first question, which is probably a short answer, is the idea that the new assistant to the town manager would be a part-time position, or is it that we fill that as a full-time position and go to a full-time HR?
So being John's wonderful assistant, I told him I was going to handle this, and he was on his own to figure out what he wanted to do with his office, because he has done some reorganization a little bit already. So
okay.
Yeah. So that's entirely up to select board discussions with me when I present my portion of the budget. I'm intending to present the board essentially with two broad options. One, simply an executive assistant. I had envisioned it as full-time. Doesn't have to be in my mind. And secondly, as an alternative, if the board likes the idea of more capacity for the town manager in his office, maybe instead of an executive assistant position, it's an assistant town manager or deputy town manager. Some towns have blurred that line, but other towns respect it and compensate an assistant town manager or a deputy town manager a little bit more generously than an executive assistant to a town manager. But I'll present those options to you when I come before you, I think November 18th.
Okay, and then, thank you.
Mhm.
And then the other piece of my question was, I guess, it would be helpful for me to have, I think, an organizational chart if we have one of those.
We do.
Because I understand that right now it makes sense that it feels like HR is really entangled with the town manager's office. Because what I'm trying to understand is like what our policies are for human resources. And for example, when somebody has a complaint within a department and they don't go to their department head, are those people by policy supposed to be going to an HR rep, or are they supposed to be going to the town manager or someone else? And are we following that? And if we're not following that, is it a capacity issue or is it a culture issue?
We do follow that very, very closely. Besides the 4 CBAs that have very specific instructions as to how a complaint is accepted and heard and handled and elevated. I can say across the board, almost every single complaint or concern starts with your supervisor. If that is not something you are comfortable with, or the complaint is about the supervisor, then they will generally come to me and we will have a discussion. And sometimes there's a difference between HR issues and management issues. So sometimes someone will come and they'll come to HR and there will clearly be some sort of HR violation. There'll be some sort of harassment or mistreatment, or your pay isn't being calculated correctly, something like that. Those are very specific. Oftentimes, though, it's a management issue, and I'm sorry to say, it's maybe staff who aren't doing what they're supposed to be doing. And that might be, or it's a supervisor who's not doing what they're supposed to be doing. Those sorts of management things, I will generally work with the department head. And then if the department head is involved, then that becomes a town manager. And I work through that. Again, John and I know when to consult VLCT, and we know when to get a referral from VLCT for legal help.
And I guess my last question to that point is, if you were able to go to full-time HR, do you envision, I know you mentioned, I don't know how, and like, if they might be different policies, but you mentioned the personnel policy. Are there other policies or other things that you might envision? Like, might that whole process become more concrete or change if we had a full-time HR person dedicated to that entirely?
Yes, by way of the personnel policy, because you have to have something that you can refer to. First of all, you always have to be consistent. You always have to do the same thing. And if you've done something that's become a practice, you need to do that again. You need to treat people equally and consistently. So with our new union agreements, all our CBAs, those are excellent guides that have been, discussed, and parties have come together and have agreed that this is how we're going to do things. Our personnel policy, the basics are there, but there's other things that have come up. There's, work day and flex time and new holidays. And, you mentioned looking for a organizational chart, more updated. Who do you go to? What's next? Because there are different positions now and new positions. So it's very important to have an updated personnel policy. Currently, we actually have some like amendments that get stapled to it because they're newer, and you need to see it as a whole broad document.
So all of that would point right back to that same policy.
Yes.
Okay, thank you so much.
Yep.
Anybody else? And there's nobody online? Okay.
Thank you.
All right.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thanks, Miranda.
Yeah. I think we should take a 5-minute break. Don't forget to sign.
Oh, don't forget to sign the CBA agreement.
I've already
a bit of a break. So next item on our agenda is to consider recommendation to select vendor for new fire department rescue pumper.
All right, thank you, everybody. So back in May of this year, I asked our deputy chief to form an apparatus committee to begin identifying a manufacturer for the design of a new rescue pumper. My goal was to take two pieces of fire apparatus and combine its use into one. We have a 2008 heavy rescue and a 2009 E1 pumper, both coming up to their 20-year life cycle. So he formed the committee. I got to commend them. They were very diligent in their search for manufacturers. We took a different approach than we'd taken before. Typically, we did an invitation to vendors to come to us to present their products to us. And this time we led the process by visiting the customers first to hear what they thought of the vendors, and then brought the vendors to us to evaluate them. They did a great job. They've recommended Sutphen Corporation as our next design firm to design the next apparatus for the town of Hartford. I support that, and I'm looking for your permission to pursue design with the Sutphen Corporation.
Thank you. Anybody have any questions for Chief Cooney? Eric?
Thank you, Madam Chair. Just a comment. Made the comment in email, but I think the process was excellent, just outstanding. I really appreciate it from the perspective of a board member who has to make decisions, and you've sort of laid out, or the committee has laid out a nice trail of breadcrumbs that helps us understand how you're arriving at that recommendation. So I really appreciate it. Also, going through the selected vendor, is it Sutphen?
Sutphen. Yes.
Sutphen. Okay. One other thing jumped out at me. There was a question in the RFP that they had to respond to for the collective or the cooperative buying agreement thing. There was a question in there about the green technology stuff, and I think they're on the right track with the idle reduction and not sort of trying to leap ahead to massive lithium ion batteries in these trucks. I think their approach makes sense to me. So overall, I'm just really impressed and happy to make a motion unless there are other comments or questions or.
Anybody online? Okay. Eric, you can make the motion then.
Thank you. I move to approve the fire department's recommendation to select Sutphen Corporation through Dingy Machine Corporation as the vendor for the purchase of a new rescue pumper utilizing the Sourcewell Cooperative Purchasing Program, contract number 113021-SUT.
Is there a second?
Second.
Second from Mike. Any other comments, questions? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
7-0. All right. Next is the proposed purchase of a one-ton utility tow vehicle for the fire department.
Yep. This next item is a withdrawal or transfer from the established reserve account for fleet and equipment within the fire department. We're looking to replace a one-ton utility vehicle as our prime mover and tow vehicle and utility vehicle for the fire department that tows a multitude of our specialized trailers, such as hazardous materials, all-terrain search and rescue, 2 Swiftwater boat trailers, a trench rescue trailer, and a building collapse trailer. And it's also used for the on-duty shift to respond to emergencies in the community where a larger fire apparatus is not required or needed to investigate. We're recommending using Colonial Municipal Group out of Massachusetts. It's the same company we purchased other fleet vehicles from under the Massachusetts State Purchasing Contract that gives us some premium pricing. It's also the company used to purchase the police cruisers as well, same company. I was gonna hold off on this purchase till after January, looking to purchase a 2026 vehicle anyways. But in doing my budgetary estimates for planning, I was informed by them that they anticipated an additional 5% increase after the first of the year in chassis prices. So that's why I'm coming to you now. So I'm looking for your authorization to move forward with the replacement of this equipment.
Okay. Any questions? Anybody online? All right, I will entertain a motion.
Chair.
Yes, Mike?
I move that the select board approve the fire department's recommendation to purchase a one-time build and tow vehicle from Colonial Municipal Group under the Massachusetts State Purchasing Contract VEH 110 at an estimated cost of $114,117.50, funding to come from the Fire Ambulance Reserve.
Is there a second?
Second.
Second from Miranda. Any other comments, questions? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All right, 7-0.
Thanks, everyone.
Thank you. All right, so is Jeremy on somewhere?
I believe he should be in the Zoomosphere.
Oh, wait, I think Jeremy, is that you?
Is that you?
It was earlier. It was earlier.
Did I do this
I'm
correctly?
falling asleep.
Say it again?
Can you guys hear me?
Yes.
Yes.
Now we can.
So I was a little nervous about the Zoom thing, first time doing it from home here. So, yeah, I hope
We all
everybody's having a great evening. I'm here tonight to ask for the replacement of two 2016 Chevy 3500 utility body trucks for the wastewater plants. One's for Quechee wastewater and the other's for White River wastewater. These trucks are used to pull pumps, plow out their stations, tow their jetter, and basically the distribution service truck of wastewater. So we had budgeted to replace these. The White River budget was under budget a little bit. We budgeted $80,000, and we budgeted
Oops, did we lose him?
we budgeted $90,000 for the Quechee wastewater. Am I echoing?
Jeremy, your audio is getting a little funky there.
Any better?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay. We budgeted 90,000 in the Quechee wastewater budget for the truck replacement. I'm having a hard time understanding why we budgeted two separate numbers, but nonetheless, Benson Chevy gave us the best pricing, the longest warranty, and they broke out the pricing like I wanted. So our recommendation is to basically go with Benson Chevrolet for the White River wastewater truck and the Quechee wastewater truck. The additional funds for White River will come out of the 321 line item for the maintenance of the vehicles, and we're under budget in Quechee wastewater.
Great, thank you, Jeremy. Anybody have any questions for Jeremy?
Don't think I'm micromanaging here, but is Key considered as a bidder for those trucks, or did they not?
Key Chevy?
Yeah.
Yeah, so we hand deliver a lot of the RFPs to people directly. And for some reason, Key Chevy has not bid on the last 3 RFPs I think I put out.
Okay.
Additionally, the service from them has been pretty rocky the last 3 years.
Okay, thank you.
Yep. We do reach out to as many vendors as possible. We tried to get Dodge to bid on it and Toyota. And I don't know if the utility body kind of scares people away or really what the case is, but these are the only 2 that have been bidding.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Jeremy. Any other questions? Anybody online? All right, I'll entertain a motion.
Chair?
Yes.
I move that we award the bids for 2 2026 Chevrolet 3500 pickup trucks with plows and cranes in the amount of $84,240 and $83,340 to Benson Chevrolet Incorporated, Ludlow, Vermont, and authorize the Public Works Director, Brian Gazda, to sign all documents related to the purchase of the new trucks.
Thank you, Ida. Is there a second?
I'll second that.
All right, second from Eric, sorry. I'm writing things down as I'm trying to talk. Okay, any other questions, comments before we vote? All right, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Okay, that passes.
Thank you, Jeremy.
Thanks, Jeremy.
Thanks, Jeremy.
Yes.
Enjoy your
Thanks.
evening.
You too.
Two.
All right, so we are moving on to discuss status of TIF district and next steps.
And Lori should be there on Zoom, recuperating from a injury to her foot.
While we're waiting for Lori to come on, Madam Chair, can I make a suggestion for future?
For what?
In regards to the agenda, kind of related to Tim's select board comment. I'm
Hi,
just-
I also, oh, sorry.
That's okay. I was just gonna point out that perhaps, for example, the last 3 items on the agenda that we did, I think are the exact kind of things that should maybe happen earlier in the meeting, because they're all relatively quick, like there's not a lot of question and debate, and we read the packets. Yeah, I want, is there a reason?
I can tell you, I get competing requests. Everybody wants to be at the top of the list. These poor folks are at the end of the list, largely due to the fact that we had already made promises to at least one of the budget presenters that they could go early on and get home. So I do try my best. It's not always pretty because there's competing demands.
Yeah, those last 3 items, I think we covered in like 4 minutes.
Yes.
5 minutes.
And I would suggest that they probably happened that quickly because of the lateness of the hour. If we put them at the top of the list, perhaps the board would have found more to discuss.
I don't think there would have been a lot of passion around the Chevy truck, but you
Yeah.
know, you never
But either way, yeah, just a,
I think we've talked about this before.
I will be mindful to all of this input.
awesome, thank you, sorry, Lori.
Okay.
So if I could also ask you to add on the consultant that's been working with me since the.
I'm here, Lori.
There she is. Yes, I do see you. Okay, that's great. So I would like to just sort of give you a brief overview of what we are presenting to you. I know that you've received the documentation, but I'd also like to do that. First of all, I'd like to introduce Stephanie Clark, who I've been working with since 2009, I think.
Yep.
Then when we
that's right.
started putting together the TIF district, and she has worked with us throughout the entire process as we've gone forward with our bonds, and as we've gone forward with, for the authorization for the projects that we're doing all throughout the years. So I want to just start off a little bit by giving a quick overview of what is this thing called TIF, because I know a lot of you are new to it, haven't necessarily gone through the process from this town's perspective, the select board, and then for the benefit of the community. And it's really the overall goal of the program is to provide a mechanism by which we could support infrastructure development that's necessary in order for us to help stimulate and make possible the development by the private sector. So imagine us having our infrastructure systems underneath the ground over 100 years old, which we all know that we did have down in downtown White River Junction. And we needed to take the time to really figure out how are we going to do this. It's an enormous cost. Development couldn't come in necessarily at the level they would like to, or at all, because we may have 1/2-inch water lines and they need 4 to 8-inch water lines in order to have current, meet current day standards and so forth, and fire suppression. We had stormwater going into the river without any filtration. We had a lot of roads and infrastructure, sidewalks that were missing or in terrible condition, and a lot of wastewater improvements that we needed to do as well. So that was the basis on which we came together for a TIF district. And we finally put all that information together in 2011, and it went to the state. And basically what they did at that time is they adopted a comprehensive plan for us. And that meant that at that time, we had to set forth a set of projects, as well as those areas that we thought would generate, would be redeveloping in the downtown. And then those areas and as a result of that development, we would be creating new tax revenue to go into this special TIF district fund. So that's kind of the quickie part about it. The benefit that we get, other than just town tax dollars, is that we have the benefit of capturing 75% of our tax revenue, our new tax revenue, going into the TIF fund. and 75% of the new state education tax revenue. The premise behind this is the but-for test, basically is what we call it. But for the public sector investment, we would not see the private sector investment, or we may not see it at the level in which we would like to see it happen. So we've gone through this process over many, many years of taking the list of projects that we have already identified within our TIF district plan, and we have strategically figured out when to implement them. It has involved a tremendous amount of participation from the public all throughout the development process and also into the implementation cycle. Now we are approaching our senior years, in which we have some deadlines that we have to meet. And that's why we're before you today, to begin that formal process that we have to meet in order to go to that final set of projects for funding. We also have some projects which we have funded in the past, which we have some unspent dollars. We have it in two different forms. We have it where we anticipated at the very beginning, when we went for the bond authorization and took out the bonds, that we were going to need X number of dollars. And it turns out we actually had things that came in under budget. We were very happy about that. But it wasn't just one project. And even in COVID, we had projects that came in under budget. So that was really good. So as a result of that, we saved some dollars. But those dollars don't have to go away. We have there is a process within the state that allows us to reassign those dollars. Now, we have been able to do that through voter approval also, and they gave the authorization to the town in our past approvals of the project to reassign those projects, the funding from those projects. But we do have to still go to the state for them to sign off on it. So that's one piece of it. We also have a small amount of funds, just a little bit over $1.1 million, that we haven't even floated. We haven't even put them in for the voters to approve. And that's money that also has to be, it's in this last final debt that we go through. Now, what I'd like to just sort of note is that the deadline we're speaking of is we must obligate and incur debt by March 31, 2026. That's the final time in which we can go forward for that. If we don't do that, we will lose the money. It goes away. It sunsets. But we have an opportunity because there are just a few projects that we have not had the opportunity yet to do. And those are the ones that are before you today. So I'd like to walk you through a few of the slides that we have, or I guess we're going to call them, they're actually just PDFs, but they're going to show us some of the charts that I want to just highlight a few items. And also, it'll give you the map of our district. I should have introduced that first. So, Steph, can you pull them online?
Yeah. Do you want the tables first or the map first?
Why don't we just do the map real fast first, and then we can come back to it as we're talking about projects if needed. Okay. So as you can see, I'll just explain this a little bit. When we were doing that initial analysis in 2009, 2010, we needed to identify areas. So we basically took what is our historic downtown and then a little bit of the area that's beyond it on over the bridge that covers Pine, Prospect, Maple Street up to the tax flat area. And then the rest of it is pretty much the downtown. The color coding there was really for convenience sake, because we needed to be able to identify areas that we thought would redevelop so that we could establish at the time that we got our plan approved, that we would be generate sufficient revenue, tax revenue, in order to pay on the debt that would be incurred to implement the public infrastructure projects. So that's basically what the coloring is. It didn't restrict us to those areas, but we at least had areas which we could say, hey, we have a good sense of what's going to be happening in this area based on conversations or things that have already started into the development process at some point. So that's what we did there. What we I want to also just note one thing to keep in mind, because you'll see some of these numbers, and the question you probably said was, well, how much tax revenue have we generated in the downtown? There's a thing called the original taxable value. That's where it was in 2011. And at that time, our original taxable value was 33,557,300. That was the property valuation. As of the 2025 grand list, that only started in 2014 because that was the first time we could actually begin to collect increment or make some improvements. We are up to 74,990,900. So we have more than doubled. Excuse me. We have more than doubled what the taxable value is in the downtown, and with all 100%, it is because of the TIF district. Without the TIF district, we would not have had the kind of development and redevelopment that we have in the downtown. So that's good news. And that also tells us that we may have enough money in order to get us through this next final stage. So can we go to the first screen? Okay. So I do have to note to you that there were a couple changes that we had just had to make because some additional expenditures came back in on a couple projects. So if you could just highlight that top line that says totals and it's under surplus, that amount went down about $40,000. And that's because some additional expenditures have just come in that we were not expecting, but that's good that we caught them at this stage. And that's basically for two projects. And those are the South Main Street parking lot that is in the final stages of completion, and the Courier Street extension, which is the road that goes behind Northern Stage and crosses the South Main Street parking lot and out to Gate Street. That project is still in the final stages of completion. We do have on that screen, you will see under what is under the 2016 voter authorization date. There's that line is blank. And that's because, well, part of that went into the 2017 bond that we did, but there's $700,000 in there for a project, for a stormwater project that we had to defer because of other improvements we had to do in the downtown first. So that's one of the projects that we're going to fund through this project, through this next set, if you are amenable to that. And if we go to the next page, you will see that we are talking a little bit about the projects that we are proposing. So you could see that we have the Courier Street project there. And then we have three other projects that are going forward with some development in downtown. Pine Street and Maple Street, and that's the kind of the in front of the co-op food store. That whole building is going to be redeveloped and expand, and the co-op will be expanding out to it. You're familiar with that because we did the lease arrangement for the parking area with them recently. And that was the first step that they needed to go through in order to go through that redevelopment process. The second project we're talking about is the is the Courier Street sidewalk, and that's between Gates Street and North Main. And I think many of you are aware of that block. It is in really bad shape. We have some grading issues we have to deal with there. And it's a high priority for the downtown businesses and also for the residents in the downtown. Another piece of area that needs work is the North Main Street. And there's some water and wastewater and stormwater issues on all of those roads that are part of the improvements as well. And that'll be between, that should actually say Courier Street to Senior Center. I'm sorry, that was an error on my part. So those are three new projects and one existing one that would add up to approximately, and again, the number changed a little bit on this because of those other exchanges, but $3 $1,548,880. That's what we have left to either reallocate the funds that are in excess or funds that have not yet been obligated through bond or voter approval. So, and we are working out all of the details right now in terms of exactly getting the putting together the cost estimates on that. And we will scale the projects to meet that, those remaining funds. So, the other thing I want to point out is that we have some submittals that we need to make to the state. And that's the it's the Vermont Economic Progress Council is what oversees the program, in addition to it being very strictly regulated by state statute. So we need to do 2 submittals to them. And one is a substantial change. And that substantial change has to do with any reassignment of dollars that have already been approved. And also we have to go through a formality of having VEPC codify within our approval status the extensions that we did receive for the TIP program, which were mentioned in the memo. And the final piece of that is actually also what we call a phase filing. We have done 5 phase filings to date. This will be our final phase filing, and it is bringing forth to them the projects that we just identified and establishing that the criteria that we had to meet at the time in 2011 and anything that may have changed since then for our TIF district, that we continue to be in compliance with them as we go forward with these projects. And there's a whole number of analysis that they do. And in some of the documentation that you received today from some questions goes through a whole list of what that documentation would need to be. So I know there's a lot to absorb. So I assume there will be some questions, and this would be a good time to ask them. And if between Stephanie and I, hopefully we can address your questions.
Thank you, Lori. Anybody have some questions? Tim?
Thank you, Lori. You know, I appreciate this, you know, the concept of a TIF, and you know, my brief narrative of that is, you know, I think I always call it, if you build it, they will come kind of modeling. That is to say that these public investments indeed entice, you know, new development and new growth, which you kind of reflected on this, identifying the tax value at one point at 33 million, and now in that same area of 74 million. You know, in looking at White River historically, we had, you know, I guess you could argue 3 or 4 significant new development projects over that period. The Village, Northern Stage, Mike Davidson's apartment, and, you know, some work on Prospect Street. My concern is that, you know, what's the risk of pursuing this additional funding is sort of one question I have. And 2 would be, to what extent really would this new work entice new development? You know, do we have any, you know, pending projects that are saying, unless you fix this sidewalk or do some of the work suggested, that they wouldn't show up or the work wouldn't happen? So I just wanted to get a little sense from you that, you know, what's the town's risk in endorsing these additional projects? Maybe the money's already sort of allocated or spent or whatever the term would be, but I just wanted to get your perspective on what that looks like.
So I think that's a great question, because we always ask that question, and it's one that we do have to be mindful of, because by obligating these funds, you are obligating to pay on them regardless of whether or not the tax revenue comes in. There are some improvements that would be necessitated in order to help stimulate the redevelopment on the section between Courier and Church Street, or going up to even the Bugby, because we're talking about doing some redevelopment there potentially. For sidewalk and stormwater, we know we've been having flooding issues going on in the downtown. So it's not only about the new development that would need some of those improvements, but it's also protecting the investments that have already been done so that we can maintain the vitality and vibrancy of our downtown. Putting in these new systems now ensures a long-term run for the businesses in our downtowns. We know we have deteriorated sidewalks. We get complaints all the time. People are wondering why, we allow development to occur if we don't have the other infrastructure in place. And it's not just along that street, but we know that the walkability of our downtown is a critical piece that we're trying to enforce, even just what we just talked about for the municipal planning grant. And if we don't have that walkability, and if we don't protect the infrastructure that we do have by maintaining it, we're going to lose ground in terms of what we want to achieve for our downtown, in terms of reinforcing the development that has already gone ahead, and also providing the opportunities for other businesses to come in and say, hey, they're making these upgrades. Well, maybe it's time to be thinking about what I should be doing. I know that there are already some properties along the stretch of North Main Street that are looking at redevelopment. But they're small businesses and they don't have the resources necessarily to take that on. But it also is a statement about our downtown and its future, and how long into the future do we want to protect it. So these resources are here now. It's only going to get more expensive into the future. We might as well take advantage of it. We're never going to get an opportunity like this again with the TIF funding. And what made it possible is the state funding coming in. That makes up probably about 65 to 70% of the revenue sources from the state education fund. So it's not only about what it will do today, but it's what it's going to do for us in the 20 years going forward. And we do want to have more housing development, and downtown is a perfect place to be doing it. And we want to have the walkability for them as well. So that's kind of where I'm coming from on this. It's a once in a lifetime. We don't want to give it up. And in 5 years, we're going to say, why didn't we spend the money? Because we know we have that deterioration already we already see it. I hope that answered your question.
Yeah, I think so. I just think that, if we went from this 33 to 74 million, is there a necessity to say, we think that's going to go out to 90 million with this extra 3 million or something? Is there some expectation of like what that tax base would look like? Right.
And I'm going to actually ask Steph if she can go ahead and walk you through that cash flow and answer some of those questions.
Sure. Let me just open this up here again. So it is nice to meet everybody, by the way. Sorry, it's not in person, but not sorry because it's late and I'm in Shelburne. So we have this cash flow document here. It is a lot to probably read from where you're at, especially, but essentially what it shows is that you have solvency here, and what that means is basically you have the ability to repay all the debt you've incurred already. So all these columns here, the first 10 are all the existing debt you already have incurred. And then you get this 11th tranche, which is the newest 1 point, what is it, Lori, 1.1? I'm not on the right tab. See that? 1.1 million for the last loan, and that would be what you repay, and that would be covered as well by the increment. And I will just say to your question about a lot of these developments, because you have such a mature district, they've seen proof of concept from your town and what the municipality is willing and able to do, and actually prove that they're a true partner in this. And so I haven't spoken to these particular the developer myself, but Lori tells me they are proceeding with the assurance that the municipality is meeting them where they are, right? Like taking the steps needed to make sure that their investments are also protected, not just the cities or the town's investments. So so here are the related costs, and what it shows is that in this, excuse me about this, it shows that in this last column, you can see where the cash flow cumulatively at the end of all your debt being repaid is solvent with a cushion. And that allows for, some fluctuation, but this is also a very conservative calculation. This shows very little growth of your existing base and so forth. So I'll leave it there, but I'm here for questions if you need me.
Thank you.
Okay, anybody have any questions? Eric?
Thank you, Madam Chair. Thank you, Lori. And the individual from Shelburne, whose name I've forgotten, I'm sorry.
That's okay.
Stephanie.
I'm Stephanie. Yeah.
Yeah, the hour is late. So from a process perspective, this is pretty frustrating because we knew this was coming before us back in June, and it sort of lands on our plate here. I went through this presentation or these slides multiple times, and I'm still not convinced that I understand everything as firmly as I would like to. But Lori, your presentation tonight was quite helpful. I want to just sort of, assuming the board approves moving forward with this, I want to just, you sent me an example of what the ballot warning was for 2020. Can we just go through what that would look like in 2026? And I think the part of the answer is in the table 6H. I understand the Courier, North Main Church, Stormwater, and the Pine Maple sidewalk stuff. The first cell I'm still a little lost on, but maybe you can just sort of outline what, not in excruciating detail, but like what would that ballot item look like? Because I think that is sort of at the crux of what I need to hear to feel comfortable to move ahead.
Okay, so on that, so I think what you're asking, Eric, is what would it be defined of as what the project elements would be and what the cost would be estimated at?
Yes.
Okay, so we're in the process of getting that information, and we will have it for you at our next meeting in the details, but we are looking at doing sidewalk. Well, so let's just take it. Courier Street has been substantially designed, and we've worked on that in the past. And that is Mayor. We're probably we're targeting that for predominantly stormwater improvements, and that project is actually, we have easements to go behind the properties between Courier and State Street. Courier and Church Street, and then with a stormwater drain that'll come out on Courier Street, and then it'll shoot, and the outlet will go down Bridge Street and outlet behind the Main Street Museum. So all of those things, we've collected the easements for the properties that we have to go through, and that's to take care of a huge influx of stormwater that we know we already have that's running through the upper part and coming through the back area and dumping onto Courier Street. We also have sidewalk, both sides of the street that we want to replace, and there will be a little bit more of stormwater and water upgrade stuff there, curbing, but basically we'll have the same configuration, and we will also be putting street lighting, upgrading things there, best for our ability as we can within the budget, and redoing the road. So those are the kinds of things that we're going to do on each one of those segments. And so those are the kinds of improvements that we would be doing on each. What I don't have right now is an actual breakdown of it on the component, but we're fine tuning a cost estimate for it. I'm working with DPW and some engineers that they have on their pre-qual list in order to get that. And we will have that available by the time we have to submit our preliminary to the state.
And if I may,
and then we'll be back here on the 18th for your approval.
Yes, and I just want to clarify, this is essentially, if you've ever seen this before, something like this before, it's kind of a sources and uses table. So the top part would be the uses. These are the projects, and what we really needed to highlight in this table, and some of these tables aren't the easiest to follow because they are kind of structurally required by the state.
Yeah.
This top number here, we have to stay under that 13 million. So this is to show that total. So this number here, the 9.4, is what's been expended to date or been dedicated already. That's reflected in the previous table. And then Lori projected what the costs would be for these projects. And this project here was well defined. These three are together. And then down below, you've got the sources. So you've got the remaining bond proceeds. You've got some that's already been authorized by the voters, but not yet incurred. And then you've got the last tranche that has not yet been voted on by the voters or incurred. So the combination of the three would be your project total. And this number here, the 1.134, now that number is a specific number. You'll probably round that up when you go to the bond voters, but that's what you'd be doing, is to vote on one of the sources that's going to contribute to the total project cost.
Right, and typically, you still have an opportunity to review the language for the bond authorization. That will come in our next phase of this, but we have a requirement to submit that documentation to the state for their sign-off process as part of this final debt at this early stage. And then you will be seeing me again after the 18th with the proposed bond language, which would look very similar to what we had on the 20th. And again, the bond language typically does not break down the specific items like that, but it is in the required notice of information that I also gave you an example of. Which included the bond language in there. So that's, and again, those are very prescriptive requirements of what we have to do by the state. And so it's this staggering process starting now of submittals to go to the state. They review them, and then we'll simultaneously be preparing the warrant language for public hearings. We'll have 2 public hearings with the warrant language. We'll have 1 public hearing on the 18th, and that is a change of date, and I'll go into that shortly. 1 public hearing on the 18th for the substantial change. And then we have 2 public hearings that we will have for the warrant that's going on the March town meeting warrant. So, and those are scheduled within the prescribed schedule that you've gotten for budget cycle.
I think I'm good.
I'm sorry. I know there's a lot here to absorb, and I do apologize for it. A lot of it had to do with just lining up everyone's agreement on what we were going to do and time to put it all together.
Thank you.
There's no motion or anything, so any last questions?
There is a motion. There is a motion for
Oh,
this evening. Yes, and there are some changes to that motion that I want to just, or clarifications I wouldn't want to go over with you before that's made. I don't want to shortcut anybody else's questions before we go into that piece of the agenda. Would you like me to identify the changes for that?
Yes, please.
Okay, so the change would be that the November 12th date should be a November 18th date. And the action items would read, the last line was to proceed with a public hearing for the substantial change for November 18th, 2025. Authorize the town manager and staff to complete and submit the necessary submittals, and authorize the select board chair to sign a transmittal letter on behalf of the select board.
Okay. Do you have that? Okay, I'll entertain a motion.
Chair,
Yes,
I
Mike?
move that the board approve submittal of the phase filing and substantial change request to the Vermont Economic Progress Council for the first level review and proceed to the public hearing for the substantial change for November 18th, 2025, and authorize the town manager and staff to complete and submit the necessary submittals, and authorize the select board chair to sign. I forgot that short.
Transmittal letter.
Transmittal.
A transmittal letter
A transmittal letter
on behalf of the
board.
select board.
on behalf of the board.
All right, is there a second?
I'll second that.
Eric seconds the motion. Any other questions, comments? All right, all in favor, say aye.
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 Thank you.
Thank you, Lori.
Thank you,
Thank you,
Stephanie.
Stephanie.
Bye-bye.
Thank you, Stephanie.
Thank you.
Okay, so now we are concluding consideration of submitting municipal planning grant application for White River Junction parking transportation study.
Okay, so I'm not going to go into much. This is a follow-up to our October 20th meeting where the select board authorized town to proceed with putting together a municipal planning grant application to develop a parking and multimodal transportation needs and feasibility analysis and with an implementation strategy. And that is what is before you in a general attached are the municipal planning resolution for the grant. I believe that was on the table for signatures, so please go over there at the end of the evening if you haven't already. And then as we had submitted to you on the previous meeting on October 14th, we have again attached the comprehensive summary that covers all of the substantive components of the application and some more information on what the budget would be, which is the final page as well.
So we're just approving the requested action, right?
Yeah.
Okay, I don't have to read the whereases.
I don't think so. If you say if there's your
Or do
signatures
I?
on the document.
Lori, do you know?
It's probably good to just get it into the record.
Okay. After the requested action?
Yes.
Okay, so I'll take a motion for that requested action.
Madam Chair,
Yes, Mike.
I move that the select board approve the submission of a VMPG application for $30,000 and adopt and sign the FY 26 municipal resolution for municipal planning grant form designating town manager John Haverstock as the municipal authorizing official, select board chair Mary Urdai as the alternative municipal authorizing official, and planning and development director Lori Hirschfield as the grant administrator, and direct the town manager and town staff to complete all submissions necessary to apply for and execute the municipal planning grant.
Is there a second?
Second.
Ashley seconds the motion. Any last questions, comments?
I have a brief,
Tim?
Lori, don't hate me for this question, but as you know, we are kind of trying to move forward with some level of parking enforcement or change in downtown White River. Would you argue that it's conceivable that after this planning grant is done and they do their study that we would consider or want to modify or alter those plans?
Are you talking about the meters?
Yes.
Okay, are you talking about whatever
Whatever overlay, I honestly don't know to this day what the overlay or plan is for regulated parking in downtown White River. But what I'm getting at is if we do a parking study and it flushes out some other innovation or concept around downtown parking, is it conceivable that we could alter the plan that's currently in place for that?
I don't think so, because I think part of the issue is that we have, no matter what we do, we have limited parking on street and in the and we do have a 2-hour parking requirement right now, and it's just can't be enforced because they can't be enforced through state's case law. It's very difficult to prove. So I don't think anything that we're going forward with for a multimodal is going to be an immediate solution. We might decide somewhere along the line that we don't need as much parking as we think, but I still feel that the requirement of regulating the 2-hour parking is very critical in order for us to just go forward with where we are today. You will be getting, with this study, you will be getting some information on our parking review that we do. Parking counts every three times a year. And the one that we just completed is one of the most comprehensive in terms of the least number of spaces available. There are some nights when we had, out of the whole downtown, we had maybe 35 spaces available. And that's, we're at that critical point. We really are. So I don't think that eliminating the parking meters is going to be any time soon. It may mean we can stay off some of the necessary improvements of expanding parking options, but the parking meters are
Just a brief question around that, as you know, like, where do we stand with the improvements to the triangular lot?
The triangular lot, those are things actually that we're going to be, that's what we call the town square parking lot, just for reference purposes for other people. That one is, once we get through this stage right here, this winter, we're going to be pulling together staff and members of the community to go through a little bit of redesign on it. I think it's going to improve what our options are going to be there, mostly in terms of how we integrate the open space in with the parking areas. And then the goal is to get it into construction in spring.
Thank you.
So we're going to do that. And that'll take care of also, I think, some of the circulation issues that we currently have, and we know we have. It's not going to change the number of spaces all that much from what we currently have, though.
We have a motion and a second.
Madam Chair?
Yes.
Point of order.
Yes.
Just in the past, this, it might be in our rules. Once a motion and second is made, we could have discussion, but questions cease. Just so you know, if you ask, I'll give it to the chair.
Yes, I agree with that.
Okay, I don't have a question. I have a request.
Is a request a question?
No, we use a different word for it.
I think I'm going to call vote.
Fair enough. I would just request that when we're done voting, we take 2 minutes to wrap the conversation up rather than move on to the next thing.
Right.
I would like to make a request and just clarify something. If we could do that after we vote, that's fine.
Okay. All right.
Thank you.
So, all in favor? We have a motion that has been presented in a second. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. And so motion passes.
Was
Okay.
that unanimous? Just checking the minutes here.
Yes.
Okay,
Yes.
thank you.
I have to finish saying the whereases, right? Lori? You
Do
want
that
on
into the
there?
record. Yeah, now that we're in
Okay.
I think it's helpful.
Okay, FY 26 municipal resolution for municipal planning grant. Whereas the municipality of Hartford is applying for funding as provided for in the FY 26 Budget Act and may receive an award of funds under said provisions. And whereas the Department of Housing and Community Development may offer a grant agreement to this municipality for said funding. And whereas the municipality is maintaining its efforts to provide local funds for municipal and regional planning purposes, or that the municipality has voted at an annual or special meeting to provide local funds for municipal and regional planning purposes. Now therefore be it resolved, number one, that the legislative body of this municipality enters into and agrees to the requirements and obligations of this grant program, including a commitment to match funds. Number two, that the Municipal Planning Commission recommends applying for said grant. Bruce Riddle, Vice Chair, name of Planning Commission Chair and signature. 3A, that John Haverstock, title town manager, who is either the Chief Executive Officer, CEO, as defined by 10 VSA, section 6838, or is a select board member, the town manager, the city manager, or the town administrator, is hereby designated to serve as the municipal authorizing official. M/AO for the grant electronic application and reporting system, gears, and to execute the grant agreement and other such documents as may be necessary to secure these funds. Alternate authorizing official for redundancy, that Mary Erdai, titled Select Board Chair, who is either the Chief Executive Officer, CEO, as defined by 10 VSA Section 6838, or a Select Board member is the Town Manager, the City Manager, or the Town Administrator, is hereby designated to serve as the Municipal Authorizing Official and / AO for the Grant Electronic Application and Reporting System, GEARS, and to execute the grant agreement and other such documents as may be necessary to secure these funds. That Lori Hirschfield, titled Planning Director, is hereby designated as the grant administrator, the person with the overall administrative responsibility for the municipal planning grant program activities related to the application and any subsequent grant agreement provisions, passed this 28th day of October, 2025. So your request,
That was wild.
Eric?
Thank you, Madam Chair. We spoke a little bit about this last time. I just wanted to request that we have a check-in and review the RFP before it's released. And secondly, that in the spirit of collaboration, we also maybe get a check-in from the project team after the analysis and recommendation phases that are, or tasks that are listed in the table at the end of the presentation here, in addition to obviously the complete study. So those are my requests, and I make them because I'm not entirely convinced that we're on the same page in terms of prioritizing reduction in downtown parking demand, which is which is something I think that the majority of the board articulated during the September 30th meeting, and I'm not comfortable that we're there, and so I think it would be prudent for us collectively to make sure we've got some checkpoints along the way. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, commission.
Can we get a straw poll on that, or? I mean, just to get a sense that I can't make a request as an individual member.
It's not a motion, so.
I'm just seeking a straw poll, just to get a sense of whether the board agrees or disagrees. If they disagree, then you can ignore the request.
Okay, Ashley, start with you.
Yeah, definitely agree. I think it'd be great. And we think we talked about that when Adam first presented. So yeah, follow through on that.
I think it's reasonable.
Okay, Mike?
No.
Okay, Ivan?
Yep.
Yes.
And I'll say no. Okay, so 5-2. All right. Let us go on to commission reports. Ashley?
Nothing to report.
Okay, Tim?
I have nothing to report.
Okay, Mike?
I have none.
Ida?
The Energy Commission did meet, part of the meeting continued to talk about locations for bike parking downtown. And then after the meeting, some of the members and attendees went on a walk around downtown to kind of physically identify some potential locations for more bike parking. And Lana, I did send you my update just now.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Miranda? You're great. Eric?
Thank you, Madam Chair. I attended a Hartford Historic Preservation Commission meeting a couple of weeks ago, and I think this topic may have come up when Jonathan Scheckman was here to present a question about archaeological studies to understand more about the use of the land, who lived here before white people settled it. The commission had John Moody give a presentation, and it was a plethora of information. He was an overwhelmingly knowledgeable resource, and presented a lot of information. And I think the board's deciding now where to go next. But he also is willing to come back and sort of help them sort through that along with some other folks. So I think there's some forward motion on that.
That's great. And very, very, very briefly, the Bugby Building Committee, after discussion, the committee was tasked to consider building in square feet and programmatic projects a decade down the road, kind of like a wish list. And then that's number one. And then number two, the parking needs of the site close to transportation And number 3, a guide to site selection after considering 1 and 2. So that's kind of a brief example of what they were starting to think of in their proposals about where we're going in the future. It's kind of a wish list or dream. Okay, and that's it for the committee meeting. We will have another meeting. I've forgotten the date already, John.
2 weeks from last Wednesday, so a week from tomorrow, which is the 29th. So that would be November 5th, I believe, Wednesday the 5th
Yeah.
at 4:30.
Okay, great. All right, so then we are down to the consent agenda. I'll take a motion for the consent agenda.
Could I
Oh, right.
make a comment? I don't know if other folks will be gone for that November 25th date. I will be flying. So I don't know if there was maybe room to, like, some wiggle room with that date, but also if I'm just like missing out, then I'll just miss out.
That's the Tuesday before Thanksgiving.
Yes.
We're doing what on that day?
That's a regular select board meeting.
Oh, I see.
I guess the question is, are enough people gonna be here on that day?
I'll
Is
be
anyone else traveling on Tuesday before Thanksgiving?
Mhm.
I don't actually know.
So I think we'll have,
Okay.
we'll have at least most of us, yeah.
All of this.
Yeah,
out.
yeah, yeah, yeah. Enjoy your
Okay.
Okay, I will make the.
Yeah.
Okay.
Madam Chair,
Oh, sorry. Go ahead.
it's gonna be the consent.
Go.
You get to second it.
Okay.
Madam Chair, I move that we approve payroll ending 10/25/25, approve AP manifest 10/24/25 and 10/30/25, approve meeting minutes of 10/14/25, future meetings of 10/30/25, budget 11/6/25, budget 11/12/25, 11/18/25, budget, and 11/25/25.
Is there a second? Or how did I get it? All right, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Okay. So that's 7-zip. Is there a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
Second by Miranda. Motion by Ida. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye.